Boom, 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 baby. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another amazing episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics, and all that good stuff. So thank you for joining me. We are here each and every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We come broadcast live to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. So if you go to the website, colorofmotion.net, you can check the show out live there. Also, if you're a part of the community, you can check the show out in the Facebook group community. You can check the show out there. But I always encourage everybody to kind of hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, become a part of the community. That's where a majority of my content gets put up. And like I said, you'll get notified when the show goes live and all that good stuff for sure. You know the drill. Hop into the comments. Like I said, where you're tuning in from. Say hey, so I can give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. I'm super excited about this episode and been looking forward to it for a while for sure. I want to thank today's sponsor for the show. Big shout out to DG Graphics. They do all the graphics, overlays, animations, and all that good stuff. And definitely, just make us look good, for the most part. So if you are a business or a brand that's looking to level up your brand design, your content, and create better content that engages with the audience, then definitely reach out to DG Graphics for sure. All right. Man, oh man. Like I said, super excited about the episode. Again, this is an interactive, like I said, conversation. So definitely want you to be a part of it. But like I said, season 5, this is season 5, and it's been rolling on quarter 3 of season 5. And like I said, hard to believe, third quarter just started, and it seems like this month is already, the first month is already over. So it's going by quick, and we've been having some amazing guests. If you caught the show last week, Andre, friend Andre and family member, Andre Rodriguez, stopped back by the show and updated us on his short film that he's working on, and that was a powerful episode. And today's episode is going to be no exception. So sit back. I think I got all the little housekeeping stuff kind of out the way, so we can kind of dive into this. So sit back, enjoy the show. Don't sit back, engage. But enjoy the show, and let's get this kicked off, eh? Wow. And we are back and ready to get this show on the road. Like I said, I am super excited because, like I said, the last few episodes, we've had family members come back on the show and kind of just update us with what's been going on with them. Our next guest, like I said, last week, Andre, he was my very second guest. This week's guest, he came on in season 2, episode 97. So he was in the first 2 years of the show. But like I said, we hit it off really great, and he came on and really shared a lot of his great work, his short that he was working on at the time. We're going to dive into that as well. But like I said, I'm super excited to have him back on and just dive into the things he's been working on. You'll be amazed of some of the projects he's been working on and been wanting to sit down and really talk to him about that. So, like I said, bear with me because he has an extensive history that I'm going to try to go through. Really, really deep history in the industry. So, from a very, very, very early age, he knew one thing that he wanted to make a living as an artist, and he spent most of his time drawing from his action figures, comic books, graffitis, and movies. And it was after graduating from high school when he realized that he wanted to tell stories with his art. But since he didn't go to art college, it was only a dream, which it is for a lot of us. Until 1996, when he was hired as a 2D layout trainee at Warner Brothers Feature Animations, where he worked on quests for Camelot, Osmosis Jones, and one of my favorites, Iron Giant. In 2000, he joined Pixar Animation Studios as a CG layout artist, where he worked on Monsters, Inc. and Academy Award-winning Finding Nemo. After Finding Nemo, he transitioned into Pixar's story department art as a digital story artist, and then transitioned to a full-time story artist, creating storyboards for more of Pixar's award-winning features. The Incredibles 1 and 2, Cars 1 and 3, Ratatouille, Brave, Coco, Monsters University, and the short film Lava. In 2021, he made his writing and directorial debut with his Pixar Spark short film NONA, which we did show, we were able to show when he came on the first time. It's a poignant short. We're going to dive into that as well. But you can check that out now on Disney Plus. He then wrote and directed another animated short film for Colin Kaepernick's nonprofit, Know Your Rights Camp. He also worked on live action films such as Scooby Doo, Black Panther, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and various commercials, with the latest film project he's worked on being Sinners. Like I said, we're going to dive into a lot of the current stuff that he wasn't able to talk about before, but now we can. He's currently at Netflix Animation Studios in development and helping on movie projects. And he spends most of his spare time still drawing and refining his craft of visual storytelling and developing personal projects to share online. Everybody, please help me welcome back our very own family and friend, Mr. Louis Gonzales. Oh, we lost him. Louis, let me see if we can get him back. Let's see if we can get him back. Hold on. Try logging in again. Oh, this is going to be fun. Let's see if we can get him back in. He got booted off the broadcast, and hopefully, there he is. Let's see if we can get him back in. I think we got him. Yes, we got him.
Well, I had to switch browsers. I mean, I don't understand what's going on. I was like,
it might
I got
have
kicked
been
out.
on me because I got a message, and I don't know. Like I said, sometimes it's really heavy on my computer because I'm recording from 3 different cameras. So I'm recording separate audio, so it really is kind of intensive sometimes. Or separate video and audio, recording all that stuff. So it can. And I got a message, so hopefully it wasn't on that. But we got you back. Mr. Dewan, I appreciate you. Happy Saturday to you there, brother. And he welcomes Louis. Yeah, where is he? We got him back now. We got him back. As you know, technical difficulties you got to roll with on live. So, hey, like I said, after 5 years, I think I'm able to handle it pretty good. So there he is. But appreciate you, Dewan, as always, tuning in. And like I said, Louis, we got to talking before. I'm always excited when family comes back. I consider every guest and friends. I mean family, and always glad when family comes back and just kind of, just updates what's been going on, especially with you. Like I said, it's been 3 years, and it goes by quick.
Very fast.
And like I said, as we were kind of ruminating on it before the show, a lot has happened in between that time. But kind of quickly give just a little, synopsis of what's been going on with you since the last time we shared your short NONA. Now it's on Disney Plus. Kind of fill us in a little.
Yeah, man. Well, first off, congratulations. What did you say, season 5?
5, yeah.
That's a hustle, man. Every Saturday, just about. I mean, that's a hustle.
Well,
congratulations.
The first 2 years, like I said, and that second year you were in, I was doing it every week. And then year 3 is when I broke it down into quarters for seasons because, just going every week, man, 2 years, the first 2 years was a lot. But 5 years doing this, we hit 200 episodes later on this year.
Damn, see? But I mean, like, regardless of all that, like, it's still a huge feat to be able to say, I've been doing this for 5 seasons, regardless of how it broke down. Because it's never really the end result. It's the fact that you're able to be dedicated and to maintain this long. That's to be celebrated. You know what I mean? Like, because it's hard to do. And all the technical difficulties, like you kicking me out of this room and then pretending like, oh, man, where'd he go? I'm just kidding. But the thing is that, we got to learn, right? Filmmaking is all about like trying to like deal with all kinds of setbacks because like in any given day, so much stuff can fall apart and it's how you respond that matters. And any kind of like legitimate like time put on something, is always to be noted, That's why sometimes filmmaking is really hard. And I'm going to get to my stuff right now, but filmmaking is exceptionally hard because you spend like anywhere between, a year to 5 years to make something to entertain people. And then to come out and people are like, that shit was terrible. That was whack. You know what I mean? Like, but that was 5 years of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to entertain you. Like, I don't think anyone's trying to like make you feel a kind of way. It was like, we tried. But that don't count. Try don't count. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you didn't kill it. So maybe you should stop trying. I don't know.
Oh, man.
But anyways, so just a quick catch up. So after I made the short at Pixar, I was there for another couple years. And I started developing pitches, right? Like I was really excited. I was going to do a Frozone spinoff, right? Him and Honey. And this whole idea, I was super excited about it. It went from being a Disney Plus, and then, execs saw it, and then they wanted it to be a feature. And so we started switching over to a feature, which I was like, that's where I want to be. I want to see this on the big screen. Because if it's feature, it's getting love, money-wise, asset-wise, resource-wise. And I'm like, well, that character deserves it. You know what I mean? So I was like, yes. And then unfortunately it didn't work out, for whatever reason, XYZ. And then I went out to pitch my own originals there, and then that didn't work out. And after that was done, I was kind of like, well, I had done everything I could do at Pixar. I think, I think I should try and, put myself in a different place to like, just see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Go on my own. Because there is a thing where like, I was at Pixar for 22, 23 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah. And it becomes a part of your identity. You know what I mean? It's a very big part of my identity. I'm very proud of the work and the shows I worked on when I was there.
Yeah.
I still love the place, you know what I mean? But it was just, if I had stayed there, I felt like I would have atrophied my creative spark. You know what I'm saying? Because it would have become a job.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm a creative person. I kind of still think of myself as that same shit-talking kid from when I was 13.
Yeah.
Even though I'm older now. You know what I mean? So like, I've always thrived on trying to get myself in the deepest water so I could figure something out as much as possible.
Yeah.
I didn't have any, I'm not trying to be, there's no notions about being great or creating something great. It's always just like, I feel like it's that like blue collar, like, I just like the craft. I love the work.
Yeah.
I love helping people make their movies. I love trying to tell my own stories. But most of all, I think what's really important is trying to put yourself around different other types of creative people so you can learn more. You know what I mean? Just have different conversations about what the craft is like. And being at Pixar 23 years, it's kind of like it's an island away from Hollywood. So you feel very much like surrounded and cocooned. Yeah, you're a bit isolated. So the opinions and the way you look at stuff tends to get isolated too a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a great place. I mean, they got tons of talent, but it was
Yeah,
just me personally.
yeah,
I had been there 23 years, so it's kind of like I felt like I've been living with my mom and dad. It went from
yeah.
being like college to like I moved back home with mom and dad, and I was like, I gotta go back out again. I want to see the world. I want to, just
Yeah, yeah.
talk to different people. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I think
different
a lot of
insights.
creatives get that because trust me, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I was having this conversation just the other night with a friend of mine he's a creative. He does podcasting, but we were talking about the same thing as far as we're both in like regular jobs, 9 to 5 jobs, but just fueling our own creativity outside of that and just wanting to, just like I said, push your creative talent as far as you do. And I think there's a lot of people, some people that, like I said, they hit a cap at a job, as far as creatively what they can do and how they can express themselves. So I think a lot of creatives, especially now in this time, are really exploring their own opportunities of telling their stories. I mean, how do you see it as far as like this time that we're kind of in and being able to, like I said, express yourself in so many different ways artistically now?
Well, that's the thing. Oh, and just to recap, sorry, I missed one thing in my background catching up.
Yeah, yeah.
After I made that short, after I made Nona, I was given the opportunity to work on another short for Colin Kaepernick's. He has a nonprofit called Know Your Rights. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's these camps he had put on for kids to teach them about their rights. And they were like, "Hey, Pixar, you want to do this?" It kind of came to me, and I was like, "Yeah, let's see what this is." I didn't know how serious anybody was because Pixar or Disney would have to pay for it, right? They'd have to fund the bill for all the
Mm.
things. And eventually, I pitched it up, and I kept pitching it, right? And they kept saying yes, and I'm like, "Holy shit, like it's still going."
It is
All
actually
the way
coming.
until like, right? I'm like, "Are you really gonna pay for this? Like, really?" Like, because I was like, I'm making this thing that I think is, me and my team worked with that I think is going to be effective and thoughtful and helpful. And I'm like, and I'm pitching it, waiting for like the no or the well. What can you like
Yeah.
whatever fies it a little bit, but they didn't do that. And I got all the way to pitching to Bob Iger and Chapek with Pete Docter and Jim Morris from Pixar in the room over Zoom, and I pitched it, and he was like, "All right, Jim, how do we make this happen?" And I was like, "What? We're actually making this happen?" So you work, you never know where things are going to come from. So I got to do a secondary short before I pitched, in my films, and it was like I had this really sweet time at Pixar that was like creatively all my own. Like I
Yeah.
was doing what I wanted on their dime, and I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing because it was like Nona was all me, like in the sense of like with my team obviously, but I didn't have studio oversight. It was whatever I wanted it to be. So if I
Yeah.
wanted to make a horror film, it would have been fine. They would have been like, all right. Um, but I want to entertain, so I made that. And then the Kaepernick thing was a whole different thing that was made for the camps, and it was like an introduction, and it was a great experience because we brought kids in from like we started talking to the nonprofits that deal with kids, helping them high school, and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, these voices are too authentic. I want to bring them in and make them a central part of this piece because if it's me, like however year old Louis talking to kids about like know your rights and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just going to be more of this finger wag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to be down with the kids or whatever it is. I'm like, I'm not, I can't speak to them the way they need
Yeah.
to be spoken to. So I need to bring some kids in of the age that we want to talk to. And it was the most beautiful thing because, we had about 5 kids that we interviewed, right? Like in the sound booth at Pixar, and I was just asking questions for like an hour, 2 hours, and they're asking questions. Then my editor, Robert Graham Jones, who's awesome, man, old school cat, been doing it for a minute. He called me up on the side. He's like, "Oh, I got it," and he put together these. He found a thread that was like these 2 young girls talking about, like one was an influence to the other. They didn't even really know each other. They knew each other, but they didn't. They were speaking about each other in these interviews about what it meant to them. Like one girl was a very much a protester type, very into social activism, and her friend was too, but she was a little bit younger, so she looked to her as like, "Oh man,
Mm.
that's who I want to be like," right? And so they kind of talked about each other a little bit,
Yeah.
and that became the center point of the short, right? Was
Wow.
letting them speak, their truth, to
Yeah.
what their power is, you know what I mean? And I thought this is what I love filmmaking and like animation especially, is like this is how we find like interesting subject matter. Is not trying to like I know all the ideas and I have all. It's more like who are you trying to speak to? How can you make it authentic? How
Yeah.
can you bring in some truth that isn't me trying to, get on my pulpit and start to preach about what I think life is? Because I was a kid once, and I damn sure didn't listen to any adults trying to tell me how to live my life. You know what I mean? Even though I might like it now, back then I was immediate like, if you told me left, I'm going right because I don't care. You know what I mean? Because I see,
Yeah.
because I'm judging and evaluating everything you're doing, going like, I want more out of life. So I'm sorry, Jack. You know what I mean? But like, I also didn't have like beyond my family. It's like, finding any real role models and stuff outside of that,
Yeah.
is relatively difficult. But that was a step in between. So now, just to kind of put that to bed, here we are today, and what does it look like? And yeah, I think you're right. I think another factor for me leaving was I felt like I've been very lucky to kind of have a gut instinct to like know when to move. Like
Yeah.
going from like Warner Brothers to Pixar was a scary move because
Yeah.
Pixar wasn't the Pixar we all know now,
Yeah.
it was like I had to learn the computer. There's a lot to do. And so I left Pixar not because I had like something else great lined up. I wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna direct, whatever, like, Indiana Jones 20, or
Yeah.
whatever the hell it is. I'm not trying to jump in. I was just like, I want to find places that I know I felt like I was the most creative. And if I can't find it, I want to make it. But the key part in that is finding people you want to work with, right? And so I left because I wanted to find more people to work with that weren't insulated in this Pixar mentality.
Yeah.
And and it's a very good one. Like I have no problems with it, but I know for me, I wanted to get away from it to not feel like just to feel like I'm pushing myself and making myself like more
Yeah.
resilient, I guess. You know what I mean? Just to
Yeah.
test myself in different waters. And I was like, here's this AI thing. People aren't going to movies. We're coming off of COVID. From the outside, Hollywood's just on fire and it's burning up, and that's
Yeah,
it.
you would think that, and it's funny because, like I said, you see all of these job posts. I see all these job postings, and they're hiring, but then I hear about all these layoffs and stuff like that, and then you hear about studios letting people go. So I'm like, what's going on? I mean, you
Yeah.
see some, and then again, I don't know, for me, which was why, like I said, I loved Sinners, and we're gonna dive into that. It
Oh
was
yeah.
original. It wasn't like a
Hmm.
rehash of a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, um, and I think that's the thing too. And I want to dive into with you as far as just original ideas, original stories that people, can latch on to.
Yeah. I mean, just to kind of, I'm going to bridge the last question with this one and just talk about. So leaving, it was important to look at all these things that are disrupting the industry. It reminded me a lot of the 2D to CG disruption, right?
Yeah,
And then like if you want to compare it to like say the .com, it's these kind of like promising bubbles that whoever's making the product is going like, this is it. This is changing everyone's life. You won't have to do nothing. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you all trees where money comes off. You pluck it and you go spend it, and you spend it on whatever you want, right? So, it's like all these big, big promises. And at the end of the day, like they're all tools, right?
yeah,
They're all functional tools. And I think that they offer, like the computer offered different ways to approach making movies. Great. I think the more we kind of stay up on, I mean, I think technology has always helped drive creative, business, so to
yeah,
speak. So AI is this thing, and when I left, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was like, all I care about is telling stories, right? So if I end up being like, however that works out, if it's not in the movies ever again, fine, be it. I've done it. I don't have to feel like I missed anything in that.
yeah,
But there's this looming idea of especially because we're seeing all these like VO3 movies coming out where
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
look, CG, like AI is going to take your job, and I'm like, it's not. It's not,
yeah,
because there's no way that the computers are. I mean, AI is what predictive. There's like two models, like there's like predictive and one other one, and then either way, it's kind of like these. If this plus this equals this, it's a formula, right? It's a math
yeah,
problem, and the best thing it can do is do what I think some shows even do now, which is combine random shit together. And it's kind of interesting because in its combination of randomness,
yeah,
it's new and it's weird, right? So
yeah,
it captures our attention. But just like anything else, I think the what makes people inherently like story is our history. Story is built in us. It's in our cells,
yeah,
and it comes from not the desire for technique. and for mathematical answers. It comes from this notion of connectivity, right?
Yeah.
Stories are our shared history. Myths are our shared history. Religion is a form of shared history because it was taken and passed and recontextualized. No different than a horror film, right? Of that nature of here is Jason Voorhees, in 1980. In 2025, Jason Voorhees is, going to be a lot different because the story he's servicing is different because it's a different time. Nina Simone says it the best. I love her, that she was like, in an interview, she just basically said, like, art is made for today. It's not made for yesterday or tomorrow. It's made for today. It's what we're feeling in the moment. So regardless of how it's dressed up, it's always about the present moment. And we're in a moment of extremes, just to say it, in the world. I think, and I'm not trying to blow up entertainment, but I feel like since entertainment is inherently storytelling, this is the place that we need to really hold our own and tell our own personal stories. And I don't mean personal, like my feeling of how I overcame, being shy, as a kid. I mean, like, entertaining each other. We all are, like, all of us story art tellers are like shaman in a way, right? We are the story keepers, right? We have the and by the way, those shamans back in the day that held all the stories, they were important.
Oh,
you didn't just walk in and be like, I'm shaman today. They're like, no, bro. Like, you had to learn all the stories. You were the one that was very important to keep hold of all this.
Because you were passing down the history of everything.
Right. And in context, right? And I feel like that's what I love about right now. So when I left, it was like, okay, AI is this big question. Theaters, going to a theater to watch a movie was a big question. I love theaters, just to be honest. It's kind of like, I love Screen X right now. Like, I see all my movies on Screen X. Okay, unpopular opinion here, but I'm not a big fan of IMAX. I don't care about IMAX. I really don't. I'm like, you made the screen a square again and it's just bigger. I'm like, cool. But when I go see Screen X, they have 2 additional projectors. And so you're watching it, and now you're in certain scenes, it's in your peripheral. And now you're embedded in the movie, which you cannot replicate at home. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which makes the theater experience more special, which I think is genius. I think that's the way to do it. Is,
well, I guess outside of say virtual reality or say something like a thing. Of course, it doesn't give you like you said, the big theater experience, but say something like a Provision. Giving you a more immersive experience in what you're in, basically, is what you're talking about, but on a grander scale, giving you that immersivity.
It's kind of like how I saw early on. I remember I grew up in LA. Now I'm in, about outside of Oakland, in Richmond, and I'm like, when I was a kid, I remember going to the Mann's Chinese Theater and watching a movie there. Yeah, it was immersive because of the scale. I mean, like, if you sat in the front,
the sheer scale of it.
Cinerama Dome, like, it was like these scales. It was like you felt immersed because by comparison, your TV was like this big. Yeah, the screen was like huge. So it always had this church-like effect. Like, it could have been God and man almost touching fingers on the Sistine Chapel. I imagine that's exactly what it must have felt like to come into a church in those days and, like, look at the marvel, all this art speaking to the human experience, right? Yeah. So when I go to theaters, I'm like thinking like that. But now theaters have become multiplexes, and like you have 2 big ones, and then if you miss that week, it's like the screen gets smaller and smaller until it's just slightly bigger than your TV, right?
Well, do you feel like that's all coming down to because of economics, the money of it all?
I don't like speaking about business when it comes to art because that inherently takes away. I mean, I think it's good if you're doing business, but I hate equating I don't like that a movie is successful because it made umpteen $1 billion. That is not a metric for me. That's a metric for the board that owns that property, right? They all want to make their money in return, and like businesses, you want to make more than double or whatever it is. You want to make as much as you can of a return. Totally get it. Yeah, but I think about experience always. Story, the way you watch it, what you're bringing to it. And so, like, theaters is how I think about experience, being something special. Like, if a story's on your iPhone, you still want it to have an effect, that probably really would pull from the iPhone's experience. Yeah. If you're put on the Vision Pro, you want something that has that uses the most for that experience. A theater, I just want that to be a new kind of experience. So I don't feel like I'm just watching an oversized TV no more. Yeah. Right? I could do that at home. I get why parents and families and people are like, well, I want to see this and not that. Because if the experience isn't that much different from a scale perspective, right?
Yeah.
Then why? It's
Yeah.
expensive, right?
Yeah.
But if you give them an experience that doesn't require them to put on extra glasses and a hazmat suit and like, you know, like sit on seats that shoot water in your eyes and like move you around for this thing, like it's a thrill ride, then help me feel the difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty down. Like I felt like, you know, what made it even funnier to me was like when they started putting like some of the theaters I went to had like leather recliners. You could put your feet up. I'm like, I'd do this at home. Why am I paying
Now
extra
you
for
can
this?
even
You know what
eat
I mean?
and order. Shoot, you can order some burgers and just sit and have somebody bring you burgers and fries and watch it.
Nah, I tailgate, bro. I just bring my own and I just kind of sip in my cup. You know what I mean? Like, but the thing is, like, that's part of the experience, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like the communal experience, but also the communal experience of everybody being able to like lock in the same way, because it's not just the TV experience no more.
Yeah.
It's the difference between what big screens versus little screens gave. But now that all screens are kind of becoming equal, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking like a couple feet or whatever. It's not even like the sound is that much better in the theaters than some people's homes. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not far off, basically. And I think that's great. That's what technology does, is it tends to kind of bridge things together relatively quickly. But so that was a thing, right? Theaters, storytelling. What does this mean, right? I'm at a tipping point. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I believe in storytelling as a human need.
Yeah.
You know, it's the reason why, you know, we elect who we elect is because of the story they tell and how much we like them. It's the reason why we like who we like, because of the stories they tell. It's never the same as like, no one just likes someone because they're there.
Yeah.
They like them because they represent a story that they want to believe, you know?
And you connect
And that's
with
our job
that
as
story.
artists. Yeah. You empathize with them or whatever, or you idolize them, whatever it means to you. It's what movies give, right? It's directly reflected in how we live, you know, as a society, right? As a species, you know, we want to connect, you know, we want to see we want to get away from us and empathize with someone going through something similar, but like in outer space, but like with twins that are vampires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we want the heightened experience of the fun of a setup, but we still need, like, what makes it compelling is the human experience. And I'm bridging that to Sinners. But before we get there, I think right now the conclusion I've come to is that we're in another change, another manufacturing change, right? From 2D to CG, from web, from buying stuff in the grocery store to buying stuff online.
Yeah.
You know, we're having these, you know, technological changes, and AI is definitely a tool that we can utilize, because I find it important to distinct that it's going to take away jobs. But I think much unlike how other, you know, changes have happened, we're really good at it. People are great at adapting, right? This is why we're here. Yeah. We got in boats, cruised the coastline, explored the world, passed our culture across, it all evolved. But this is what ties us all, is we all kind of come from this one place, right? This one time. And we moved out beyond that and changed, but you know, our stories didn't. You know, our stories just altered to reflect the place and space in which we're in, right? Yeah. So I look at AI and I go, we're at another creative inflection point where, all the promise of what it can do, and it's gonna, you know, the fear mongering of it's gonna take our jobs. It's not gonna take the jobs of people that, you know, really are infatuated by storytelling and trying to kind of tell a compelling story.
Well, what about the because it's not just the jobs, but what about the legality of rights and copyrights and infringements on other people's stuff? What are your thoughts as far as AI? Because I think that's a big part of it. I think that's the majority part. Like I said, I think a lot of people and creatives get that you're not gonna take the humanness from AI, but they're more thinking about the legalities of how it's learning, how it's scraping your artwork without you being compensated, kind of thing. Kind of speak on kind of your thoughts from AI on that perspective.
Well, to me, that's trash. You know what I mean? Like, you can make the legal argument, right? This is why I don't necessarily like, I love lawyers to protect me, but I hate lawyers because they protect other dumb ideas out there that are like, you know, like I heard this argument, which I get. You can easily land this argument going like, well, artists, they learn from other artists and they combine it and come up with their own art. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it's not the same though. Because everybody that combines that art, what they're coming from isn't the art that matters. It's the underlying life experience. It's the underlying connection to your fellow man that ends up making that a thing, right? The want to connect. The idea that I'm doing this, like when I was in high school, it was like nothing more fun than drawing something for someone, because like friends used to ask me to draw stuff for tattoos all the time. I'd be like, hell yeah, let's go. It wasn't that I wanted to draw for them per se. It was just more like, oh shit, you value something in me and I want to give something back. And there's a give and a take. There's a communication, right? There's a human connection to it. And so with AI scraping all this shit, I mean, we've been getting scraped for our information now for a while, and we've all pretty much signed off on it because we as a species love ease and comfort.
Yeah.
So you're gonna tell me that's gonna make my life easier? Cool, I'll bet. Check. I hit the yes on all the fucking like
I don't think a majority of people read the terms and agreements when they
no, that's why they do it. You know what I mean? Because if they didn't want to, if they wanted you to know what was going on, they would tell you, right? I'm not trying to make this conspiracy about that. I'm just saying, like, plainly, like, there's a lot of legal to protect the interests of what you're trying to build, and I get that from a business perspective again, because here's the thing. I look at myself like this. If I wanted to make money, I'd have to be okay with, and I don't think this is 100% true, but I feel like, by and large, if I wanted to make money, I'd have to learn how to be, I'd have to learn how to hate my fellow man. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have to, like, if I want to make obscene amounts of money where I can go spend 17 million on a wedding in Venice, I'm just throwing this out arbitrarily. I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, but you know what I mean? Is that a worthwhile thing for me? Like, what did it take for me to make that? And why am I so okay with, like, not using it to help my fellow man? Right? I don't understand, like, the aspect of making money. The way you get successful is, and there's plenty of examples, is to capitalize on human suffering to a certain extent, right? Like, you can't look at a typhoon or some sort of big disaster and go like, oh man, oceanfront property hotels, they can't afford to fix it. And so I'm going to invest, I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
And money has become this factor of, it's okay to, if you, however you made it, no matter how you made it, it's okay. It's like Grok, and Musk's AI spewing. He built a little power plant in, was it Kentucky or like Missouri or something like that? And it's spewing all kinds of bad stuff to the community. It's okay because it's Musk, right? It's okay because it's for Grok, and we all want AI, right? And so, like, that's not because he's trying to help his fellow man. That's because he's trying to make money. And if it was about us, there would be different practices, right? So anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Yeah. It's all to say is that, the difference between trying to be creative and trying to make money, it's a distinction. Now, if you sit somewhere in the middle to kind of keep making movies, that's a different thing. And so I think that where we're at is studios are too big to fail, in the sense of they don't want to lose money. They don't want to take risk. They can't afford to take risks because things have become, and things are more expensive to take risks with, right? So you have an area where, like, in order to, kind of secure their business, they're not looking to communicate and, like, give us more ideas and more ways to look at stuff in a way that's different. Yeah. They're trying to make sure that their bottom line sews up so people stay employed, which I completely respect. Yeah. But also, it isn't just that. But regardless, it does keep people employed. That's why when I bring up people, it matters to me, because what I do affects the people with me. You know what I mean? Like it was a shame when Pixar had to let go of people. There was a lot of people I knew that got let go that were affected by those layoffs, and I can't be mad. I feel bad for my fellow workers, because it's never the other people that get absorbing the checks that get let go. It's always the people that are, like, trying to the working class that are trying to make
work and
the
survive.
thing. Yeah. And they're the ones that are like, sorry, you got to go, because the way we approached it messed it up, and now you got to go. And I'm not saying that's how it happened with Pixar, but by and large, that's how a lot of companies are.
That's how they cut. They cut from the bottom up.
Yeah,
most times
it's the most. Isn't it interesting? And you're like, did you save that much by it? Like, I bet you, like, the 10 people you cut, if you had cut one person, you probably could have saved 20. You know what I mean? Like, it's always a funky thing to kind of look at what money is versus what art is, and we're in this business where we have to swim in between, and I think that where studios are at is that they got to look at their bottom cost, so they can kind of keep in business, I guess. I don't know. But the thing is
there's a happy medium to be a creative studio that's, pumping out creative stories, but you still, like you said, as a business, you have to turn a profit to stay, to continue to make money, to pay your employees, to make stories. Do you think there's a happy medium? And what are some of the, man, I'm not trying to, have you name drop or this or that, but what are some studios that you've seen that's found that kind of happy medium of being able to put out creative stuff that just creative, but still stay in business, because you have seen a lot of studios go under for one reason or another.
Well, there's a trend. I don't even need to point out anybody really. I mean, but I will say Pixar was a lot like that. Pixar to me was one that was very much, really, really the whole soul. Like the belief was, in order for us to stay afloat, in order for us to keep making movies, we have to try and make the greatest movies for an audience. Yeah. Not for me, not for Louis and his story, but for everybody that's going to come into the theater. It's a different mentality, right? So like I think Pixar was very much a good representation of that. But I will say, not just Pixar. I've been lucky enough in my career to work on a couple of different movies outside, Sinners being one, Iron Giant being another, both for Warner Bros. Ironically. But they all share this similar thing, right? The similar thing to me is that the leadership, the creative leadership that's going for it is going for broke. They will outwork you. Brad, Ryan, you name it in the early directors at Pixar. These creatives were so passionate about the craft, right? And about what makes a fun and entertaining and compelling movie. Yeah. That they worked as hard as they could. Not that anyone else isn't working hard, but like, it isn't the hard work you put in from start to finish. It really is the last 10 yards, right? Like it's like football, right? The last 10 yards is the hardest. Yeah,
getting over that.
That's like a movie. Yeah. That's a movie, right? If you can be, if you can still find ways to pack and cut and tweak and just keep honing the idea of the movie, it goes from being good to great, right? You kind of lose a lot of the extra fluff because you're constantly honing and when you're the most tired, when you already are done and everything's coming in, you're kind of like, well, it could be like, it is what it is, that works. Or you can be like, it's not good enough, let me keep polishing it, right? That is the trend I've seen that has gone from good stuff to be great, and then stuff that's good to be okay, or okay stuff to be good, right? Like it's all on the level of the amount of tenacity or grit you have to maintain that same scrutiny you had at the beginning at the end. And that's difficult, right? That's not a studio thing. I think that's studios do have their part in the mix, in the mix that is creative, because there's a lot. Yeah. But it's not. It's an element of how you run it.
Yeah, how you as an individual are, as a person that want to push yourself, creatively as far as in the best that you can, with what you're doing.
Well, it's not even just pushing, because people might get that twisted in the sense of I gotta have all the answers and I have to do this. I'm saying they were so much about the craft that the discussions about what made a movie good, not from an opinion I liked it, more like this scene did this XYZ, and so in this scene it didn't do XYZ, and notice how this one is more entertaining than this one, right? That's where these movies that I've worked on in places that I've been lucky enough to be a part of had, right? It was this love for the craft.
Dissecting, just really going in and dissecting why this works, why it doesn't work, type of thing.
The craft.
The craft of it.
The craft that has not changed since cinema started, since illustration on the Sistine Chapel, right? Where we're trying to bring in this feeling of awe to an audience, right? We are audience focused, not me focused, not Louis and my little story, but it's this story that I love, that I feel something for. It's calling for me from another place, I think. You know what I mean? It's calling for me from my ancestors, or it's calling me from mankind's beginning. It's the things that connect us. Yeah. That's the level we want to kind of aspire to, but also you don't want to talk about it like that, because no one wants to be talked to like that for the most part. We want to be entertained. So the job is truly hard when you don't know how to entertain first, right? You don't know what audiences want. You don't have a real strong opinion. Actually, everyone has an opinion, so that's where I'm going to separate and say, you don't have the experience dissecting and understanding the craft, right? It's kind of like a boxing, you know. It's like
Yeah.
you can work the heavy bag, you can work the speed bag, and do all the elbow tricks and do all this stuff. You can spar and tap and do great. You get in that ring, and you have to that's where you really learn.
Yeah.
That's where you learn, like, oh shit, my head didn't get back far
Well,
enough.
it
You know
might
what I
say
mean?
you don't really learn until you get hit.
To get punched in the mouth, yeah. And it's true, right? Because that to me is like what makes filmmaking difficult is that
Yeah.
it takes years to make something, and that's just to make it.
Yeah.
It takes more years than that trying to get it sold so you can get it to make it, right? So the iteration aspect of filmmaking is incredibly difficult to kind of develop that. So who you see that are successful are people that are just absolute cinephiles, right? They can speak about film in a way that it isn't about, I like this or I don't. It's about, this one is effective and it got me because of this. This one's effective and it got me because of that.
Yeah.
If you don't have those opinions about the craft and it's all you have are opinions about what you like and dislike, then I think there's a layer that you miss that is like, you're not really, you're kind of looking to speak into an echo chamber of people that aren't think like you. And I think film is the opposite. I think film is the art medium that you want to get people that don't think like you to think like you, or at least not debate the argument, right? Just take it in because it's a pleasant way to talk about it rather than feeling aggressive because I'm asking you questions. You know what I mean? Like it's a way to bridge the gap to kind of entertain, but also show that, you know what? I'm just going to say maybe putting kids in cages isn't a good thing. You know what I mean? We should think about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's been normalized. So like, like no one's fighting it. Their kids are going by and large, whatever. But, if I made a movie that was called Space Cages and it's about the bad guys caging up space animals, you know what I mean? It's going to talk to a similar thing. That was really bad, by the way. But, it's that idea that, to go back to Nina Simone, we have to talk about these things that are here, but we also have to do it in a way that's entertaining, because I think that medicine goes better if it's sweeter. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that I have medicine, by the way. I just think that it's good to talk about the things that we're feeling about, right? It's more like, I think maybe it's more like a therapy session, you know what I mean? Like with other people, right? It's like, oh, we kind of have to come to this, place and share this space together. And that's special. And I think it's kind of gone away a little bit because like from pre-COVID to COVID, going from social media to being locked in to nobody, we learned how much we miss each other just being around each other and how important that is, how that brings life to you, even if you don't know them, just like a movie. It brings life to you in a way that you don't, because if it's done truthfully, you really feel it more than you sit there and analyze it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and just to say it on the AI thing, AI to me it is about jobs, right? It has to be, because we need to pick each other up. Right? Industry shouldn't be looking over to roll over people and not worry about it for industry's sake. I feel like industries and the way they come up, we always need to kind of take the role of how do we make it better for all of us and not just the people that invented it, you know what I mean? Or that are pushing it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we fall into, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have an idea. So us as artists, I really believe that we need to take AI and I'm not saying scrape and art hawk. I don't even care about that. What I care about is, how do we get animated films to have smaller crews and get under $30 million, which sounds like a lot, but comparatively to 200, 150, 100, there's a lot more room for original ideas and interesting gambles, right? Yeah. To be taken, because they're not losing as much money. And we have to respect the idea that these big entities have the market locked down on how to get stuff out for people to see. And at the end of the day, we want people to see. We want to share this entertainment, right? This human experience, with other people to kind of reach out and connect. Not to make $1 billion. I mean, I'm sure that's some artist's idea, but not mine. Like I don't see how art is a billionaire's idea to me, or whatever. Like content. My cat farting is content. Do I want to like just do that as a channel? You know what I'm saying? Like even if it's popular, is that what I want to do?
They have a big following with that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, all right, that's. But I'm not judging. I'm saying that's just not what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just know I got this. What do I got? I'm hoping I have at least, I don't know, 80 rotations around the sun. Right. I hope I have that much. I've been lucky enough to have a really good life. So if I ended up passing soon, I don't think I wouldn't regret a thing. You know,
Yeah.
beautiful family, good career, all that stuff. Very lucky, you know, great parents, all that fun stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm in a good place as a human being. You know, I try to be at least. And so anything I'm in bonus time, right? I'm in that bonus time where I can get to focus on myself, focus on what I want to give rather than what I want to take. Because I think when you're younger, you can't help but to take because you're
Yeah.
trying to figure stuff out and you need to take.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hopefully ethically, you know, not yanking fools, but like, you know.
No, don't do
But
that, guys. Don't take anybody.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like don't that's not a healthy take, you know? Healthy take is like trying to take in different types of stimulus, you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
know, basically learning from the dead, you know, reading books about people's thoughts and trying to understand what a good life is and how you can achieve what you think a good life is. And so like at this point in my life, it's like, all right, I would love, there's things I want to do that I've been wanting to do, but I don't know the reality of it because making a movie, an animated film, it's a lot, you know what I mean? And am I wanting to be a guy that wants to like put all my family's livelihood on the line for this? Maybe.
Yeah.
It has to be something I really feel, but I have to be really diligent about what I'm trying to do and
Yeah.
who I'm doing it for, you know? So when I think about AI, I think about how do we get more creative voices? Because I think studio systems at a certain point, it's not going to be viable for them to make, it's just not, I don't think it's viable from now to make small films. I think you're going to have places like A24, Annapurna, like these smaller, you know, Blumhouse,
Mm-hmm.
all these smaller production companies that are going to find, they'll be able to find 30 million, 20 million to make these films, 50 million. And I think that there's going to be there should be a bigger growth of that smaller production company stuff that's allowing to sell to different vendors, right? Hulu's, the Netflixes, the Warner Brothers, like, and to be valued and find your way to work within that so that you are doing your thing and they are kind of like the vendors that you're
The
selling to.
broker for your show.
Yeah.
Out to
Yes.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think that this is the way that we start to develop. And I keep saying this to them, like, you know, because I teach, you know, at Project City, and I'm like, you know, it's not even teach. I went with Project City, which is a online community, you know, animation artist community, and it is kind of like, you know, I'm one of the experienced leaders there, I guess. That's not what they call
One
it.
of the
Like
OG, one of
teachers.
the OGs.
Yeah, you know what I mean. You know, I'm on the step talking, debating, all that sort of shit, right? You know, I'm like Aristotle's little brother or something. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example. Whatever. But anyways, you know, you're just talking about like artist life. You know what I'm saying? Like you talk about this stuff of like, I'm more of the opinion of like, I'm not here to show you how to hold a pencil. I'm not here to show you how to make a stroke. I'm here to talk about what's stopping you from doing and finding your potential,
Yeah.
right? What's really stopping you from completing that project? What's really going on and you understanding where you're at in your journey? I have been through a lot, so it's easy for me to talk about it because I've had a lot of failures and successes, you know what I mean? But as it goes now, to me, it's really much a factor of like, what am I giving back, right? Like, what am I speaking towards? Who am I, you know, is it about me or is it about we?
Yeah.
And to me, if you know, I've had friends that are like, I just want to make movies that are like, I want a legacy. And I never understood that. I don't understand like the desire to be, this weird desire to feel like I'm bigger than I am. Like, I'm just like, bro, I'm happy if I'm around people that I like these days.
Yeah.
You know, like real talk. I'm like, people that just aren't like, you know, I have one homeboy named Hill, man. He's the homie, and he's just like a guy that's like me. It's like he hasn't changed, you know, in a way that he is who he is, and like there's never ever any false errors. There's never any like social norms that we try and like maintain. It's just like we're in a bad day, and everyone knows it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the connection of what the work means and how it presents itself to me, you know, to others, to bringing these youngsters in to like talk about what I'm going through in my project that I'm working on currently, you know, for myself.
Yeah.
Why am I doing it? You know, like I'm of the opinion, like I don't want to develop in a studio anymore, right? Like I've done it for 3 studios where I've pitched stuff,
Yeah.
and that's all fun and good. But what I absolutely dislike after it's all said and done is that they own it, and so that they're like, no. And then I'm like, cool, let me take it. And they're like, well, if you want to pay us like $1 million for it, or you can put us down for a turnaround. And so if you do sell it somewhere else, we get a piece, you know? And I'm like, But why should you get a piece if you said no? Why should you keep it if you said no? I should be able to make money off that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, granted, if they put money on me, I totally get it. You need to get your money back. So
money in,
I'm not saying that, but I hated that there was a function where once they say you're done, it's done, and you got to start over again.
Yeah.
And I've always liked this idea that I read with Isaac Asimov. Right? Isaac Asimov, if you don't know, is a science fiction author from 70s, 60s, whatever. Very big, notable books, right? But he was a best-selling author at a certain point, and so like I was reading this article where this interviewer goes in and is like, "Hey, Mr. Asimov, your latest book is #1 on the New York Times bestseller list," and he turns around and he goes, "Oh, really? Oh, once I finish, I don't even look at them anymore. I go on to the next idea."
Yeah.
Right. And I loved that because I'm like, I feel like David Lynch is like that. I feel like a lot of real creative artists are like that, where these things that we're making are really about things that we're dealing with right now, right? To go back to Nina Simone, it's like our job is to figure out a way to get these ideas, these feelings in an entertaining way out to other people, right? To move from tribe to tribe and share the stories of our tribe with their tribe and let that permeate and mix and blend, and they'll take it and they'll tell the story in their kind of way, but I'll move on to another place, and we'll constantly do that idea of like how we all would share ideas, right? There's like the idea that Gobekli Tepe, right? It's one of the oldest like sites found, for civilization, like in Turkey. Yeah. So one of the things I loved about that was like there's a theory, right? I love archaeologists like that because it's all like kind of like somewhat grounded theories. But anyways, there was a thought that this idea that when we weren't just gather hunters and then just farmers, there was no transition. There was actually a time where there was both. But the way it would work is the way it was thought, anyways, was that it was seasonal, right? So Gobekli Tepe was thought to be the space that they would come to celebrate during the summer, and people would come in and share their bounty and whatever, right? They would all do it together, and then they'd all go off to their tribes and their spaces and hunker down for the winter.
Yeah.
And I always love that because I think there's this, in order for us to be here today, given the place where mankind started, right? There has to have been a core story that we all share, right? There has to be a core idea that, helps us be who we are, that it's so ingrained in us that we can't imagine it. It comes out through the work we do, but you have to be looking for it, right? Because we were traders, right? We would exchange information, how many religions influenced each other? Yeah. If given any time, you know what I mean? It's like, how much did Africa influence Greece? Egypt and, all these places, that you had ingrained history and civilizations that, had stories to tell, and that some of our myths and stories come from now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's cyclical. We're all so connected, and we all desire to be connected. And this is why art to me and films specifically are important, because the embodiment of the human experience, we can see it, we can hear it. Luckily, we can't smell it, because you know what that would be like. Ooh, boy. I don't know if it'd be like, a mix of sweat and Jakar, or like, like it's gonna be like ocean and rubber tires. I don't know what kind of movie you're watching. You know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Oh man, but no, I'm with you. I believe we share this common thread. I mean, I think as humans we share this thing that connects us all. Despite the ethnical differences and this and that, or location difference, geographical differences. I think there's this thing that we share. Like I said, that binds us as humans. And just us being who we are, type of thing. And again, that's where stories, like I said, that's what connected us all. Before there was even language, there was just stories that we acted out and just acted towards each other until we could communicate with one another. So I think story is the thing that binds us. These shared experiences are the thing that binds us.
One thing I love is this notion of music being our first language, right? Like we would like hit pieces of wood and like, again, no one was there. So, believe it or not, it doesn't really matter. But I love the idea that story at some point is musicality, right? And that's another thing I love about film is that like when you draw it or you film it, it's one thing to capture life. But when you go into the edit suite, that's when it's musicality, right? So film is like the art of all arts in the sense of it combines a bunch of art into one.
Yeah.
So like this idea of communication through like the way in which the musicality of how a movie is cut is like all these elements are the reason why I think it resonates so much is because it's so ingrained in us. The whether we want to frame it that way or not, the natural connection are these things that are internal, right? That's why we don't necessarily. Sometimes people are like, man, I loved it. Why? I just really liked it.
Yeah, I don't
The
know
part
why,
when they
but I
flew
just
up in
liked
the
it.
air, the part when like the cat farted or whatever. Like you kind of like have these moments that pop out, but really something deeper resonated with you, right? That you're trying to make sense of.
Yeah.
And that to me is what matters. That's why art and business and all this is all related around people. Who you work with, who you're making it for. The world is essentially like this is why we've been getting sold this bill of goods for how many centuries now that
Yeah.
there is a difference in us, and that difference must be paid attention to because now we can war. Now we can be divided into tribes and war with each other, and sow seeds to like make sure that we're always fighting instead of coming together.
Yeah.
But that's why I love film. When you go to a theater, yeah, there might be some people there that annoy you, but like you come together for this thing.
Yeah.
When a big disaster happens, people come together, right?
Yeah.
But when in lieu of that, why do we have so much division? Why do we pay so much attention to, we all believe, like this idea that, yeah,
Yeah.
culturally we can say like in a movie that when someone dies, culturally people of different cultures react to death a certain way. But the one thing that's completely resonant amongst all cultures is that we all feel loss, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the difference between a movie like striking on a surface level and a movie kind of moving into that subconscious, that thing that's programmed to do us.
Yeah.
This idea that it isn't how you do it, it's what you feel, right?
Yeah.
It isn't what you do to make you feel how you react to it, because that can be cultural. But the initial moment, right? The loss that you feel is what everyone feels. How you deal with it, that's a cultural or personal thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's what movies, when they kind of hit on that level, they have that gravitas of moving beyond the surface of like what the cultural aesthetic is or whatever, the gender aesthetic,
Yeah.
to a human aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is the thing that I love about films is like you marry the cultural or the fun aesthetic with the human aesthetic that connects us all.
Yeah.
And there's no way,
And I want to dive into that a lot deeper because, again, just the craft of storytelling and really, like you said, kind of, you were saying the great ones just kind of continue to whittle it. And, especially since, last week's guest, Andre Rodriguez, and him working on his animated film, he really, gave you your props of you helping him kind of craft the story of Double Smooth and stuff. Was that something you kind of continued to work on from NONA to this point? And you've had a chance, and we're going to dive in. Like I said, I got so much to really dive into.
I'll shut up more now.
Yeah, you've had a chance to really work with some amazing directors, both live and animated, that are really good at that, really crafting the story and really dialing into the story. And that's something I'm trying to get better at, just writing and crafting, being able to craft a story. Kind of speak about, your process, because it's kind of, on a surface level, it's easy to say, working on the story, but just sitting down, just actually getting into the nuts and bolts of constantly refining an idea and getting to the essence of what you're trying to say. That was something Andre and I talked about, because, I was telling him about an idea that I was kicking around, and he was asking me a lot of questions about, that, which he picked up from you. Just really asking yourself the essence of what you're trying to tell and who you're trying to speak to. Kind of talk about a little about your growth from NONA to, you know, what you've learned on the projects after Nona and what you've learned from some of the great directors, both, like I said, live and animated. You work with Ryan Coogler, and he's just, like I said, on another level when it comes to just storytelling and crafting a compelling story. Kind of what you've picked up from just this whole time of storytelling and directing.
All right, I'm gonna try and be succinct here. I tend to like to speak more, but just to talk about my trajectory. So from Nona, Nona to me was a big change in my life, creatively. I had went in going like, of course, it's like my first time directing at a studio I respect a ton, with the people I respect a ton, right? So you don't want to fall on your face. So it felt like a high wire act, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to do this, it's all me. So if it's bad, it's all me, right? Going through that was the best creative, like, and not creative, I'm sorry, creative. Of course, it was creatively fun. It was the best confidence boost for me, right? It was a fact that I knew now I could make something of quality. And yeah, I'm not saying Nona was the best thing since sliced bread, but I know it wasn't bad. I know there was a lot of promise in it. You know what I mean? Especially for cranking this thing out like under budget and like, within 8 months from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
That's fast. And then Know Your Rights was even faster. That was done in 3 months. And that was 2D animated, right? But regardless of that, that doesn't make it better or worse. I love the fact that I was able to do these things on a smaller budget, a little faster, because you iterate more, right? So it gave me the confidence. Both those things gave me the confidence to go like, okay, I don't sweat making something. Now I have to learn how to sell it. I have to learn how to like, entice other people to want to put money on it, right? So when I went to then start developing movies at Pixar, I had my confidence about me and a bit of my swagger, and I kind of know what I want. Yet I couldn't get a movie made there, and I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Like I honestly think when I look back, I learned a lot from how I approached the situation, which was I approached it from like, here's the promise, trust me, I'm gonna go, and they're like, wait a minute, bro, like we gotta put our name and our money on this, so you need to give me more than that, right? And it was something at the time that I don't feel like I really understood as well as I do now, right? After I've kind of went out, left the studio, pitched a few other ideas, got a sense for how it runs in terms of talking to executives and basically how the studio system works when trying to start up and get a movie going. It's incredibly difficult. So it helped me to look at myself and go like, well, what am I really doing when I'm trying to get movies and stories off the ground? I was more about what I wanted to say than what about who I was trying to reach. Now, that doesn't mean I want to, like try and dumb something down or shoot for someone else's style or idea of what they like. It was more about me having to learn my craft even more to really try and sell very clearly in a way that's also going to make them bite and want to see it, right? There's a craft to entertainment, and I think it starts with the sale. And it's something I didn't realize, because if I can sell you, basically, if I understand my story enough, if I can craft this idea for you to want to watch it, then I have something in me to sell, and and it gives them confidence that I can make a movie that will sell, right? Mm-hmm. There is that idea, and I feel like I've learned that quite a bit. But what it did do for me was, it was like, okay, I realize that's what I got to do. Why do I need studios? Why do I need them to develop my ideas as far as they feel comfortable, and then they can decide because of a bad box office or something that's similar, they're going to say no to it now. Yeah. It's a kind of a fickle market. So you go like, well, I want to evolve my craft, so I'm just going to make what I want to make and try and sell it the way I want to do, which is in a movement form, right? I don't want to just do like a one pager and some art. I actually want to board, a sequence, or I want to board something that sells and gives them the idea of where it's going to go, what it's going to feel like. And I entertained you, right, through editing this animatic.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, at least you have an idea of what it was going to be like. And here's the best part. They say no, I say thank you, I take it, and I go to the next place.
Yeah.
Right? Or I look at people and I try and get people to fund it, and I make it myself.
Yeah.
Right? This is what us as creatives, especially with this idea of potentially what AI could be in terms of a tool, have now. Right? There's a lot of, since there's more billionaires now than there's ever been. How many of them want to get into making movies? Right? How many want to break into Hollywood and figure that stuff out? I mean, there's so many people starting like, potential streaming platforms, and Byron Allen and Tyler Perry and all these other people trying to like do stuff that's great.
And different content now to put out there. Yeah.
So I think there's like this, for me, it's like, how do you find the spot that has the money? Like, I want to do the Looney Tunes thing. I want to find the place that has the potential to be able to put it out somewhere, but also, and give me the money, but also like not be overly concerned about how much it makes, but more like they just need they need that thing, right? Looney Tunes were just made to go in front of films, right?
Yeah.
So they weren't like this big thing, it was just like kid stuff or whatever. And they made some of the greatest cartoons that we still emulate today, right? When I look back at some of the other places, like when I was on Iron Giant, it was like a smaller crew than Quest for Camelot. Brad was like, super passionate about like this movie he wants to make, and he was really great about talking about the craft and being that that he wasn't. I mean, he's charismatic, yeah, but he was more about. To me, what got me rather was how much he talked about the craft and his love for film. Same with Ryan. Yeah, a love for film.
Love for film. Yeah,
Pixar, love for film. Right. The idea that we wanted to elevate film. Right. You can't just want to make a film. You have to want to elevate it and have an idea of how to do that. So these are the things I learned afterwards, coming up to now, where I'm like, I got to bet on myself. I got to bet on myself and bring up as many people as I can with me. Right. This is where the artist coalition has got to start. Yeah. We got to start taking back this fact that we are less than and we're not. You know what I mean? It's no different than the auto factory floors, where you have workers putting cars together. When there wasn't machines, you needed people. Yeah. And so what did they do? They brought in machines, started phasing out people. What does AI look like right now to us creatives, right? They're the machines that are going to take our jobs. But guess what? This isn't putting together a car, homie. Like, this is different. Yeah. This is talking about heart and soul. This is talking about connection through the eons that we've been around, right? That's what we're talking about with art. Yeah. Slightly different than, ones and zeros guessing our, potential answer to tell us something, looking something up on the internet to tell us the facts, whatever that means. Yeah. Which, by the way, like, the open model service, open model aspect of things is always funny because, it's like you look at Grok, and Musk. This fool can't help but to control it. That's why you got Mecha Hitler or whatever. You have these guys that aren't going to allow it to be honest because that doesn't suit their narrative. Yeah, it doesn't. Right. So, right. So, like, why would we bet on that? Right. Why would we, when we know that it's not about us as a species, right? It's not about making people better. Yeah. It's just another way to leverage to make money off of people again. You know what I'm saying? So I love the notion of us, trying to like find ways for us to help each other to make stuff that actually matters for us. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm sounding very militant, I think, right now, but I believe strongly in this, in where we're at and how we can kind of, like I do feel like film can be a potential help in bringing people together. Oh, definitely. I do think it's a like I'll never forget, like, when I was young, it's like, there were some older gangsters that came out of jail, right? And I'd be like, hey, what's up, man? I'd meet them for the first time, and we become friends because they like Spider-Man. And that blew me away because we were talking. There's a dude that did a hard time for some shit, and then like now we're talking about Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and some shit. And it's like we became friends, and it was like
I like stuff too. There's right? always a human connection, and I think that's like I said, what binds us. This humanness, this connection. Some kind of connection. Like I said, we may not share every kind of connection, but there's a level of connection. We all laugh, we all love, we all bleed, we all want the same things as far as a good life and provide for. So we all want the same core things in life.
Well, movies are great empathy machines, right? Like I think movies are great because they can show us and help us understand a different point of view than we were raised around, right? So we're always afraid of the things that we don't know, right? That's just that's our survival mechanism, I believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
I'll go even further. I think art, just creative art, is a thing because good music can connect people in a way that So I think art, just in a whole, whether it's a painting, whether it's sculpture, whether it's something. There's this thing that binds us because we create it as creators. We're creating it from a human, this feeling that we have. There's somebody that shares that same feeling that's going to connect with it. So I think art as a whole is just this creative thing that binds us together, whether it's through music, whether it's through drawing, whether it's through dance. It's this thing that we share as a human being that we can tell stories through. That's why I think that scene in Sinners, the dance, the barn scene was such a powerful scene. And I don't know who storyboarded that, if you had a chance to storyboard it or what, but that was such a beautiful scene, the way he put it together, and it clearly just articulated this thing that we're all binded. In that particular scene, it was through music, of course, but there's this thing that binds us and ties us together that we just can't deny. Some people want to deny it, but want to not, claim it or try and break it. But there's a thing. There's this thing.
Well, I didn't board that, by the way. There was one guy, I forget his name right now. I feel bad. I mean, he actually directs at for Marvel, and he's done worked on a lot of great films, by the way. Yeah. But Brian brought him in because he boarded on Wakanda, and so he just boarded that one scene because that's all he had time for. And I remember seeing that, going like, Ryan, I don't understand. And the boards are good. Yeah. But I had when we were boarding that and I read it in the script, I was like, because it said surreal montage, right? That was the title on the script pages, and I was like, what is going on? Like everything felt very like I understood everything. And this is why it's the genius of Ryan, right? I was like, I get everything. I don't understand the scene. It wasn't until I saw it in context in film that I was like, oh yeah, this is a movie now. It elevated a movie and a story to beyond, to be bigger than, right? That's what made that movie the Sistine Chapel to me. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Is it elevated movies? It elevated this story to a place that is beyond just being in the South, beyond blues music, beyond, right? Beyond a movie that you've seen before like that to a certain degree. Yeah. And that's when you're working with good directors, that they have the ability to put at least one scene in a movie where it just kind of evolves the movie. Yeah. It evolves the story and takes it from like first gear to like fifth gear. It just goes, wow, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like red line. And then it comes down again, right? But it elevates everything, right? It elevates the experience, right? And that's always something we should be paying attention when we're creating movies.
Oh, man. And art. And that brings me to my next point. And again, everybody that's just jumping in, I've been trying to bring you into the conversation. We're having an amazing conversation with our family and brother here, Mr. Luis Gonzales, storyboard artist and director extraordinaire, and like I said, past guest that's coming back on for sure. Let me throw some comments up here. Miss Mary, happy Saturday, Don and Lewis. Happy Saturday to you, Mary. Appreciate you tuning in, as always. Mr. Marcus, I appreciate you tuning in as well. Shared communal experience is critical. It's like I said, it's funny. As humans, we some people may not like interacting, but as human beings, we have to be around people. We have to be in this social contact. Otherwise, we'd go crazy if we were, which a lot of people do. If they're in their own head by themselves with their own thoughts, they go crazy. That's why we have to be around other people.
Yeah, why do you think solitary confinement is such a bad place to be in a prison? You know what I mean? Man. You're in the worst place with your own thoughts. You know what I mean? That's a terrible place to be.
Yeah, it is. It is. We're going to take a look at some of the artwork for sure, and and some of the stuff that Lewis has been working on. Like I said, you're instrumental in helping Andre, with his Double Smooth short film. And like I said, I'm wanting to get better at just crafting the story. Where do you start? I mean, one, just your question, but what you were saying before was kind of a question I had earlier as far as storyboarding. When you're storyboarding, are you aware of the film as a whole and how it works, which you just kind of alluded to? You weren't kind of sure how that scene fit into the whole film, or are you solely focused on the scene that you're storyboarding and the bit that he gave you in storyboarding? So when you're giving him storyboards, are you drawing them in the context of the story as a whole and how it kind of fits together, or are you just how this scene fits together?
It depends on where you're at in the process, right? I I I don't see how to storyboard or work on a story if you don't know the whole story.
Okay.
You have to know the context for what you're working in, right? You have to know where the characters are coming from and where are they at presently when you're doing this, right? So you kind of have to at least know the history of where they're coming from. I may not need to know where they go to, although it's helpful, so you don't
Hmm.
step on something ahead of you. But you want to have context. I think context is one of the greatest words for art. Is that when we make stuff, it's got to be in context for what we're trying to, right? So I'm not going to paint if I'm going to break dance a piece of art, right? It's not the same. I can paint it or draw it, but when it comes down to the end, the execution, it becomes something else. It evolves, or whatever. But I've always loved this idea of like Maurice Noble, who was a really great artist. Looney Tunes days, art director, amazing. He put out a book and I was reading it, and he basically said one thing that stuck with me, which was I always try and design for the desired output, right? Meaning that if it's an animated short, I'm going to paint in acrylics. Then all my sketches and studies and the things I'm doing to kind of understand the design, I'm gonna do in the same like medium as that. So what does that mean? That just means that like for me, film is ultimately where things are gonna end up at. So any boards I do has got to be in context for where things are at in the story, but also contextually to go, okay, in this moment, this is a really exciting moment. What's going to make this heightened? How do I make this moment worth staying in the film? That's my job,
Yeah.
right? Because if I do it weekly, it's going to get removed from from the movie
Right.
because
Yeah.
it's not quite doing something that it needs to be doing.
Yeah.
And everything that is in a film should be hard earned, right? It should have gone through the paces, and you're like, I'd love to pull it out, but then all the Jenga pieces are going to fall, right?
Yeah. Follow.
But I think every scene is that, so if depending on where you're at the process, if you're at the beginning, it may not you may not need to know what the whole story is. You have the gist of the story, and that's a phase when you want to come up with exciting things that you'd want to see in this story, right? Think in all moments, really, like dramatic moments, fun moments, action moments, thrilling moments. It's your time to really kind of basically build and put all these like potential pieces that you can utilize later that you won't use all of it because once you start finding out what the story is, you're gonna know what doesn't fit, and you're gonna try things that are a little bit more relative to the idea that keeps it together.
Yeah.
So like that opening is all about the exploration process and the fun in it. When you get into actually making the movie, when it's storyboarded, then it's good to be on top of like where the story's at, where it's going, who the character is, and so that you can kind of make your moment as entertaining and as impactful as possible, because
Yeah.
they all should be,
Yeah.
right? When you're getting
Well, I
to the
want to
end,
go through a lot of your stuff, and we're gonna start with Nona, and
oh,
just
okay,
kind of how you unpacked it. And like I said, again, we had the distinct pleasure of being able to watch it. When you first came on, but jump either go check out his first episode in season 2, or go to Disney Plus and watch it there. But it's a beautifully told story.
oh, thank you.
I want, like I said, for those ones, for those writers, story artists that want to get started, but just I don't know how to write a character. I don't know how to write a story. How do I write? And that's why I was asking Andre, do you write it as a script or do you write it as a story? Like you're writing it out? I mean, where do you start when you have an idea for a story?
Uh, okay. There's no one direct line to this, right? Like I think if I was to say one thing that would kind of indicate what I do and why I do it is I try and have fun with whatever I'm doing, right? It's got to be something that calls to me in the sense of like it's a fun idea or there's something about it that's interesting. And I draw a lot. I draw every day, right? And I'll sketch at night before I go to bed. Just let my mind go as some dumb stuff on TV's on, and I'll just sit there and I'll draw characters and ideas that just pop into my head randomly that aren't stories. When something keeps calling back to me, when a character like in Nona, that character kept coming back to me because I had other story ideas, right? It was really about trying to find someone that I wanted to follow, a world that seemed interesting to me, right? Something that called to me that I couldn't explain why, right? I just felt it. So I felt compelled to go back to it. And if I went back to it, I kept exploring it and I kept playing with it and allowing things to kind of happen to test the waters to see, is this the direction I want to go or not? Because I wrote a script for it, but I think what the script was like my way of kind of just getting an idea down on paper, just to go, okay, this is what I want to do, and there is some truth in there. I don't know what the truth is, because ultimately, I know everyone says this, and I'm not trying to piss off any writers here, but I'm like, writing is a function that is more suited towards business practices than it is to actually like making films. In a way, not live action. I'm saying animation, but because live action is so, predicated on showing up and having a plan to shoot something. I totally understand scripts, but in the creative process, in terms of like the ideation of what's going to be at the end, this is why live action will hire artists to like draw moments to like help them with how it's going to be, potentially as a springboard to have something to talk about, to evolve it. So in the end of the day, like what we bring to the table as writers, artist writers, is the potential for what the output could be, in the sense of how we watch it and experience it. Because I haven't read too many scripts that help me experience. I enjoy the read, I enjoy the story, but it's not the same experience, right? Because it's the written word, and we have a different attachment to words than we do to pictures. Pictures tend to be absolute.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because, again, it's a survival mechanism, right? We look to our environment to see what's safe and what's not safe. So when we're watching something and it's giving us unsafe visual, this is when our heart, we sweat and we're like, oh shit. When it's action packed, we're leaning in and we're like excited and tense. It's the visual stimulus that we need to worry about. So like in terms of filmmaking, I think there's not enough importance placed on what storyboard artists and artists in general bring to films, because this is how you kind of visualize it. This is how you kind of see where you want to go with it. All the greatest writing in the world isn't going to bring that to you.
Yeah.
Right. You need artists to do that. And like, it's such an interesting thing, because like, it's like, oh, we want a writer's room, because only writers know how to like tell a story and help us in this way. But then when you bring an artist in, it's funny how so many writers are like, oh my God, I need more pictures to write from so I can get even more inspired. Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we should all be doing, is inspiring each other, right? You separated us, not us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing to kind of think about, of like, again, I go, why are we so tribalistic in the way we do this thing? We all need to be a part of it. We all have to have the context. So why are we separate?
Yeah.
Why is this? You know what I mean? I always ask those why questions, because like when I get in the position of doing it and people are going to tell me why, I'm like, because I said so. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I want to have a reason for why I do it that brings people in than not. You know what I mean? Because I do value the other, but I also have to value the fact that, and this is why I love Ryan, is that Ryan is a great collaborator, one of the best I've worked with. Because I've worked with a lot of great directors, but not the greatest collaborators, right? It doesn't mean they're bad or good. It's just the way they work, right?
Yeah.
You can't knock someone for how they want to work unless they're just terrible to their crew, which I've worked with a director or two like that, and I get particularly triggered by them, and it's not a trigger they want to set off. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, do you think the work is any better or worse? The end product. I mean,
well, I'll tell you this:
as how they handle their crew and their team.
One director in particular, the movies were still good. This dude was not good as a person, as a human being. He was pretty terrible, but the movie came out good. You know what I mean? Life is unfair. I don't think life is about checks and balances. You know what I mean? I think life is like as good as we want to make it in the space that we're at. You know what I mean? And so with this, you can choose to be, a tyrant, and you can choose to belittle your team, because even though they want to work hard for you, and they will do it, and they will have a hard time, and you will have a good movie. But
will it be the best movie since you got the best out of them, though?
Well, I'll tell you this. Disney, like we can go back in history and talk about how leaders ran people and generated creative successes that were really helpful to us down now. However, like I'm at a point in my career where I want to work with people that just care about the work. You know what I'm saying? Like that just want to give back and like try and make this a thing of communication, right? Where we are telling stories to help us see each other.
Yeah.
Not divide each other. There's plenty of that in everything else between social media, commercials, and leadership in terms of like, the corporate welfare, for billionaires, and like, pull you up by your bootstraps from everybody else that don't have money. You know what I mean? Like the mixed messages that we get, signaled across us all day, every day in the stories that they're encapsulated in is what we're fighting. Right. And I say that we're fighting it through entertainment because I believe entertainment is still that one space where we can actually speak truth in a way that, is like how we used to do, right? We didn't directly make fun of kings and queens. We said there was a dragon and a princess. You know what I mean? And we talk about these things to criticize
Yeah.
who's demeaning us and taking from us. We bring truth to power. You know what I mean? Like we have that in us because we can make it entertaining and still talk about something that's real right now, affecting us all. Not affecting us one or two, but affecting us all.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. So I got off a little bit again about what you were asking for in terms of storyboarding, but storyboarding is a very multifaceted tool, and it works in any part of the process. When you get towards the end, that's when it gets into like it's frustrating, but it's necessary, right? Of honing little details, no matter how tired you are, of still pushing to make it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's when you're working out, and it's the training partner that's like, come on, one more rep. And you're like, yeah, and he's like, oh, you got that too easy. One more rep. Yeah, you know what I mean? And they get the most out of you.
Oh man. But again, like you said, you just love those ones that are really collaborative and kind of, I guess, trust the skills of what the artist or whoever, the editor, or whoever the cinematographer brings to the position that they're doing. I think those are the kind of people that you want to work around, that trust your skills and are, hey, run with it. This is kind of what I'm doing, but show me what you bring to the table on this.
I've always said this, Don. I've always said, like, I always want to work on a pirate ship, right? Like I felt like Pixar, even Sinners, like all these same places I'm talking about, to me were pirate ships, right? Everybody was on the ship with the same purpose, right? Right? To go loot, you know what I mean? To go like make your life. And you have all kinds of colorful characters when you do that, right? Like a pirate ship isn't a corporate ship, right? It isn't everyone with their hair parted and all that fun stuff. It's like different sorts, different builds, all kind of people, right? Pirates were a gang of like collectives. They weren't like just like racially profiled of like, oh,
this person, that person, all working towards the same thing.
And that's why I love it, because I look for I want to either build a pirate ship or I want to find a pirate ship. I don't want a cruise ship. I don't want a dinghy. I want a pirate ship, boy. You know what I mean? Like I want a pirate ship that I can like, be with a bunch of people that don't think the way I do, but have the same goal. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Right. It is. And that, when I'm talking about writers and whatnot, it's not that writers are bad or good or our storyboarders are better or not. It's how we work together towards a common goal. Yeah. And when we get separated and there's like this differentiation of who does what, right? That's not the creative process. That's people trying to control the situation, right?
Yeah.
It's their form of leadership, of how they feel they work best. It's like big rooms, small rooms. Well, some directors like small rooms because they don't want to deal with the big rooms. And my thing is always like, they're one percenters. I don't think they hustled everybody they could to get to that position. I don't know if they get the right to be like, I don't want to deal with all these notes from all these people. I'm like, you have $150 million on your back. I think you need to strengthen up and be able to talk so you can make this as good as you can. Because we all need it to be good, because we're all depending on, because guess who they're going to cut if this doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So your little fear right now that you have, I understand it. I empathize. How do we help you?
Yeah.
How can we help you to make it better so that we all don't get cut if this movie doesn't do good?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's really what's on the line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's like I said, that's such a powerful thing. And I think is what every, creator really wants, is to work on a team like that they feel like they're a part of it, and we're all bringing our unique flavor to this gumbo here that we're trying to produce. And that everybody's going to enjoy eating once it's done.
There was this thing I saw. I loved it because it kind of reminded me of like just that, right? Gumbos and like, stews are some of the most like basic. Like if you talk about like what's your comfort food, most people it's kind of a stew, right? Yeah. And I was reading about, I forget which culture it was. It's crazy, but basically there's like this stew. It's called the Forever stew, and they basically just keep adding to it every day. Like it never gets, the pot has been brewing. it's been brewing this and making the same stew for years, right? Because they just add more water, add more ingredients, and it's called like the Forever Stew. And I was like, there's something so poetic about that, right? There's something so intrinsically human about that. That is like, this is us on the planet Earth, right? We're all ingredients that keep getting put back in, right? As
Yeah.
we're being reborn, born. That
Yeah.
kind of evolves what we are, right? Evolves the flavor of who we are. And I was like, that's an interesting idea. Not that there's a movie there or anything like. There's no there with that, but I
Well,
love
I mean,
connecting like
and I
culture and all
guess
that.
that's and that's kind of part of the underthread of, like I said, why I started the show. What the show is about is everybody's got such interesting stories,
Yeah,
that can be told in some interesting ways, and that's why, like I said, you know, even when Andre came on the first time, I was telling him, man, your story, you need to be telling your story. So I am super glad that he's, finally leaning into it and making it an animated film. I'm just excited. Can't wait to see how it comes out, because I know the power of the story behind it and what it can really do for people and how it can really affect some people. So I'm super excited that you're working on it with him, and helping him. And like I said, just for me, sitting down is something that I want to get better at writing. Like for Nona, when you say you wrote the script, do you write it out as like, she says this character says that, or are you writing it out like a book story, like a novel, like a story
yeah.
type of thing?
Well, I I'm a big believer in iteration. Like if and I only come to that conclusion because I think that there's often this when you're growing up, right? Everyone's like, you're so talented that you can draw, and so like there's like myth and like weird like mystical belief that people are just born with the ability to
Yeah,
draw. I just think unlike athleticism, which I think you're born with, coordination and whatnot. I think that with art, it's really a compelling. It's almost a compulsion more than it is an art, right? It's something you just feel like drawn to do. You don't question it. It just makes you feel good,
yeah,
and it makes you kind of put the world in perspective in a way that often isn't there. You know what I mean? Help you connect to things, and so I just when I write a story, I just try and get it down, and then I get it down so I can kind of see what it is, because from your mind to the paper, no matter how you write it, it evolves, right? And you need to get that evolution. Like it's like you need to read it to see what it actually is, because when you go to write it, it evolves, right? Because when you're putting it down, having to connect the dots, more stuff comes out and you surprise yourself.
yeah.
And I think that in the iteration of it is always trying to surprise yourself in each iteration. And the more you surprise yourself, the more surprise you tentatively have in this whole story. If there is absolutely enough, if you can pack it full of surprises, you actually have a really strong movie, right? Because if you're surprised, audiences are going to be surprised. If you're having a good time, for the most part, audiences will have a good time. But if we get caught up in like what it's not doing, and like we get frustrated and we're just trying to pound it out or not trying to look at and enjoy what's bringing, because there is
Mm-hmm.
those hard times. If we can find something fun in each iteration, it'll be stronger because of it. You know what I mean? It'll point you in the direction of what can make it stronger. I think is just understanding what it wants to be. So in that regard, it's definitely like I wrote to answer your question plainly. I wrote, I just I just wrote the story not like through any POV. I was just like, this happens, this happens, this happens, and then and I was just trying to do the math of like, how do I get from beginning to end with this character? What would they do in this situation? What situation would be interesting to see him in? I have one set. How do I make it interesting? What is she about? I have this TV that's important. You kind of put your toys together and try
Yeah.
and think of what kind of like thing can you do. The most important part is to think about it as an iterative process, right? Of like, always be clear over clever, right? I don't want to be clever first. I want to be clear first. I want to understand what it is that I see and what this story wants to be and why I like this story, right? Why is it compelling to me? Why is it calling me to me?
So
I'm trying
when
to
you
answer these
sit
questions.
down, so when you sat down, were you writing, like, okay, I have the little girl character, she's this personality, she's this type, she's, precocious, she's this. Do you write out her traits and who she is as a person, or do you just dive into the story of, you
Well,
know.
I don't write down, like, I like to list out stuff when I'm talking about, like, if I'm in a movie, if the story I'm working in is like in the fantasy genre, right? I'm gonna list a bunch of tropes just so I know the elements that happen within or the familiar elements that happen within a certain genre. Audiences need to feel comfortable with what they're viewing, right? They need to have some sort of connection. So you need to understand how the tropes work, most importantly, so you can subvert them, right? Because I think that's the art in storytelling, is that every story's been told. It's how you subvert tropes, how you subvert ideas that makes it fresh. So you can't do that right away, I don't think. I think maybe you could have some stuff, but I look at it from the point of, like, I'm just trying to be clear, knowing that I'll make it more entertaining. But if I need it to be entertaining, if I need it to be everything right here, right now in the first draft, in this first writing, I'm asking for a world of hurt. I have to give myself more leniency to go, like, all right, this is a discovery I have to do. And I'm going to go for a walk for a while and get lost in the woods for a minute. And I hope I find my way to another town, right? To the town I want to get to, right? And that's what it feels like to me. You know what I mean? So, and just to say, like, I do list out some stuff, but when it comes to characters, I never do backstory or list out questions. Like, I don't fill it out that way. What I do though, is I like to mind map, right? And basically what all that is a visual way for me to go, here's the character. And I can attach, like, I basically just draw out and go, okay, uh, she's a maintenance person, right? She lost her husband and is, like, closed off, her house is like an attic, it's like she'll be like a dusty museum. Like, the little girl, like, likes to play with this and she's kind of like this. And I just try and allow it to branch out and see where their traits kind of take it, so they become more unique. But I have to have I have to have a central idea of, like, she is basically like if I have my main character is, the grandmother who just wants to just shut everything out and enjoy her day on this very special day, right? Where she gets to, like, kind of be with her husband, her deceased
Yeah.
husband. It's a ritual, like, what would be the worst person, but also the person she couldn't, like, she couldn't say no to. Because anybody else that comes to that door, she'd be like, get the hell out, right? I'm gonna be rude to you. I'm gonna say what I gotta say. You need to go. But what if it's her granddaughter, right? I didn't want a daughter. I didn't want, like, a son, because I did have a
Yeah.
son in there for a minute. I was like, a granddaughter's great because how do you tell a little kid, how do you be mean to a little kid who just wants your attention, who just wants nothing more to be in your life, right? So I found that there was comedy in this lady who could push everyone away, who's kind of rough and tumble, to being like, oh, just seeing her have to, like, acquiesce and, like, try and maintain her composure while she's kind of divided between two loves,
Yeah.
right? I think we've all been between choices that really matter to us, right? Which college, which school, which girl or boy, you know what I mean? Like, like, we have these choices that inherently mean a lot to us, and how do you split the difference, right? How do you bridge it? Do you pick one or the other?
Yeah.
And so I just felt like that was a very human thing to kind of talk about. That wasn't an original thought. It came out of trying to be clear and tell the story and understand what the story wanted to be. And then once I kind of discovered that, it allowed me and helped me to understand where I can play, and mind you, I could have played a lot more, but there wasn't a lot of time to iterate in the production process. I had a little bit of time to iterate in story, but I had to find a lot. And so when I got into the process, it was like, trying to, I was just with the animators and my team, lighting, and everybody, and my producer, just always kind of getting together, talking about what could be more fun in that moment, right? And trying to make it a pirate ship of, like, everyone has a say, speak up, like, I'm not the same time to be quiet.
Yeah.
we're all gonna, if we hit the wall, we're all hitting it together. So we all gotta be on
get
deck.
this
You know what I
thing
mean?
together.
You know?
Oh man, everybody, like I said, this time usually always goes by so quick. We're going on 2 hours here, but we were having an amazing conversation with our family here, Mr. Luis Gonzales. Man, that's large. Let me take this one off here, and put it, like, right here, really large. I love Maurice Noble's layout designs in those classic Chuck Jones cartoons. Duck Amuck, Duck Dodgers, What's Opera? Yeah, Dewan, Dewan's a big Looney Tunes, Chuck Jones person there. They are abstract, working so well with the scenes. The simplicity of it, for sure. Um, when you're sitting down, well, let me ask you this: do you think it's easier being able to storyboard and direct, storyboard your own ideas, as opposed to if you were just a director and then had to work with the storyboard artist to do it?
I go back to, what we talked about earlier. Like, I could do it myself. I don't think it's better I don't think any art is better just, I mean, okay, let me step back even further and go like, I don't think there's an artist in this world that hasn't had someone else have a say or help them in some way to make their art better, right? So this isn't a individualistic idea of like the director is this.
Yeah.
I think a good director is like a good leader. They bring on people that will challenge them, that will push their ideas in a way that they wouldn't do. So like you can't have a lot of, like-minded thinking of like, yeah, we all like the same thing, because then you get homogeny, right? You need to kind of, you need that pirate ship, you need that gumbo, you need other people to kind of bring it to a place that you wouldn't have taken it to. That's what elevates, and that's what makes films great, is because it's inherently a team effort.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that you can't get away with like not showing up. If the leader's showing up, right? If the director's showing up, like let's go back to Ryan again. Ryan would get to the office like at 6 a.m. sometimes, and I was like, bro, like, one time I came in, he was already there. It was just me and him, because I usually try and get in by 7. And he was like, I said, bro, I've been here for. He's like, since 6, I have to come in early, and get ahead of everybody. I'm like, sure enough, sure shit, I'm showing up at 5:30 now. I'm beating him, just because I want him to be. I'm like, hey, bro, you late? I want to tell him he's late. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, hey, it's all competition and love, because you want it to be, part of it is like I respect your hustle, but also I'm gonna step up to that too. I'm not gonna get lazy now.
Yeah.
I can't get lazy.
Well, I talked to Andre about this as well, as far as being able to, especially when it's your kind of project that you're spearheading, inspiring other people to really get on board and see the passion, that you're putting behind it, to bring other people on board is a different kind of thing, as opposed to you're working at a studio, everybody's, working their job, that type of thing. Kind of, what have you kind of pulled from this time of, working at studios, but then now you're wanting to, get into more creative things, being in this position now of, inspiring other people onto your idea of what you're, wanting to do?
It's that is a mind game in itself. Like, I think that, like, I can't worry about how, I mean, of course you're gonna go like, I hope everyone's on board and like they're fully about it. I kind of think that, if you care about it, and if you're just a human being that talks with your team about it, whoever's around, and make everyone a part of it, I think 9 times out of 10 people appreciate the experience of making the movie than they actually do the movie. Because in lieu of a bad experience, what do you do besides go like, I worked on that movie, right? But like, how was the experience? I think that every movie is a chance for us to work together and find a way to make something interesting, to move in the same direction on a different pirate ship. You know what I mean? With a different captain. I think it's the thing that Andre is really great at. Like, I think Andre is power. His skill, his power set that I would say is above most is his ability to bring people on. Like, he's a really good community organizer, right? Like, he is solid about that. So as a director, I think that he's going to be good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think watching him kind of grow and see how he moves, I got a lot of respect for that dude. You know what I mean? Because he's trying to tell a story in the animated space that most people, I think, would be hesitant to. You know what I mean? But he's just all about it.
I'm trying to think of a studio that would get behind, big studio that would get behind something like that. I don't know. Well,
I mean, because like inherently in the studio system, that's a lack of representation. Andre's got to be 1% of people that work in animation with that kind of background. Majority of people that work in the background animation kind of have a similar background, which is why, like it's a rare story to see.
Yeah.
And that's why I told him, I said, I think this is an important short to make. You know what I mean? In all reality, I just think that the quality of having different voices and different experiences is everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so when I did meet with him and we talked about it, I was just like, look, man, look, I can tell you where I think things are slow and unclear, but this is your experience. So like, how you want it to play, I can't tell you. I can't tell anybody. All I can do is I can tell you what's clear and what's not clear, and I can tell you what I think I'm getting from it,
Yeah.
and you can tell me if I'm, in the ballpark. But most people, when you show them your work, they're not the answers. They're not Oz on high. They don't have the answer. They have suggestions. They have taste, but more importantly, they will point you to the places that where the leaks are. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, around here, I didn't really like it. Some people will be like really good, like, I was lost here, and some people are just like, I didn't like it right there. Like that was just when it got bad or whatever. And you're just like, all right, I'm trying not to get emotional. I'm not trying to take it personal.
Which is hard to do for us
Which
creators.
is really hard to do. Really hard to do. But that is the goal, is to remove yourself from the art or the piece and try and step back and get it out away from you so you can see it for what it really is, because that's the only way you can really adjust it. Yeah. So, it's just, there's a lot of things to, it's a difficult situation. Like you are as a director, especially a director writer, you are the full conductor. You wrote the music, you're conducting the orchestra, making sure everyone comes in at the right time. And so you have to have an understanding of how these things work, So like the role of a director is so much deeper than just a love for story, edit, animation, or writing. It's the love for all of it and how it dances together. And that's that's the context from which we work in. Yeah.
We're looking at some of the center's storyboards. When you get like the script, you're working out storyboards, do you quickly do like 2 or 3 different maybe iterations of that one maybe panel that you're doing type of thing? What are you thinking about as you're reading and trying to visually interpret, kind of, one, bring your own flavor, but then 2, keep within what Ryan's trying to do within the movie?
Yeah. Well, most of the time I am trying to iterate, and there is iteration that happens, right? Naturally. I'll iterate my own stuff and to get it to a pass. That pass will I'll get notes from the director, I'll go back, iterate on the notes, put it together, show it to him again, and hopefully we can kind of get it to edit where we're all happy, right? Well, the director's happy, most importantly. And then it'll go to edit. They'll play it and get it to move at speed, discover that there's areas they want to milk, take away from, adjust, and then we'll go back and iterate again.
Yeah.
That's kind of how the animation process usually works. In live action, there was so it depends on time. We had more time on Wakanda to board, so there was more iteration going on. Where I might have to do 3 or 4 whole passes on these scenes to kind of adjust and tweak and kind of fix for Ryan to kind of get the stuff that he liked. On Sinners, we had no time. Like Ryan had 3 months or so for pre-production. You know what I mean? Like when I came on, I think I came on a little early and I was just helping out with a couple scenes. It was no big deal. It was like this. I did the scene at the end with Buddy Guy, with old
old Buddy
Sammy,
Guy, yeah,
with old Sammy, and the whole smokestack like ring and all that kind of stuff. That was my first scene, and I kind of went through it kind of quick, and we had some stuff where it was like, Ryan's like, oh, we need this to be on the left side, so we're trying to get it for more screen direction, stuff like that. And that was the most iterative scene that I had, because once I went on set to go help out for a few weeks, that's when the real work happened, and I was there every day, and all I did was churn out scenes. So most of the scenes I had done that we've seen here is like almost like a one and done, which like Ryan would give me notes, but we got to the point where Ryan was so busy working with actors and sets and kind of prepping because when I left, they were shooting. Like my last day on set was my last day on location was, I think, their first or second day of shooting. Right.
Wow.
And so I got to be there on set to watch them film when, like, they're driving the car, all that kind of fun stuff. And I'm sitting there smiling like a big geek, I'm like, oh man, I'm on set and all that kind of stuff. I'm just, at the craft service, like eating stuff and drinking stuff, trying not to have to go pee and all that, hanging out, but
I know you were just loving it. I know you had.
I was. I was completely excited by the 70 mil IMAX cameras. Like when I saw the film come in, the canister was like this thick. Yeah. And it was just like set IMAX and like all the shit. I'm just like, oh, that's so sexy. Like it's just unexposed film. But I'm like, oh man, that's just so sexy. And then Ryan was like, called me over to the set. He was like, hey man, come to the set. And I said, all right. So I jogged over. There was a couple blocks away from the main house, whatever we were working in, the facility. And I went to set, and it was like, bro, we're doing tests. So they're doing blood tests, right? In the set, like nothing in the background, just a little bit of lighting and whatnot. Really dope, right? They had the contacts and whatnot just to see what shot. But they're running the camera, and it's the first time I got to hear the camera. That shit's loud. I was like, they turn it on, and rolling. The camera's loud. I was like, oh my God, but it's like running strips of film that are this big. So I get it, man. Like, so my last day on set, I'm like sitting there watching, and they have like those big, the IMAX cameras mounted to this rig around the car. And I was just like, this is a dream, man. Cause it was like, to me, most movies that we worked on, not, in live action, they were shooting with regular like 35 and like different kinds of color, sizes of camera, right? With this one, it felt like being in old Hollywood, right? Because because we were in like, Louisiana, so like there's a lot of soft ground, so you couldn't put a lot of cranes. There's a lot of logistics to the types of camera. I try to pitch drone shots, and they're like, we can't do drones, we don't have it, right? Okay. So you look at like how to do it in this really kind of more refined, or not refined, but in a more constricted way, which is a lot like, when the advent of sound, right? Cameras had to lock down, but silent film, cameras were flying through shit. There was a lot going on moving camera wise in silent film, but when it came to sound, things had to stay really, kind of still, right? More importantly, as film developed in those big sets, like, those big epic sword and sound epics, it was like big cameras, lights, and you would kind of have these big setups where they were slow and they were very intentional. It wasn't a coverage game. It was very much every shot was intentional, right? Because it was trying to capture as much as it can.
Yeah.
That's what this film felt like. So I felt like I was in the golden age of filmmaking in a way.
Yeah.
Although it being modern, from the standpoint of a board artist as a filmmaker, I'm looking at it from like, okay, I don't have drone shots. I don't have helicopter shots. I don't have plane shots. I have a camera on sticks. Maybe sometimes we'll have cranes. Let's talk about it, and let's just see about staging it the best we can, And so that to me was what was fun about it. Was I understood about it. I understood it. Ryan trusts me a good amount, and he, like I said, he's a good collaborator. I think he trusts everyone pretty good. If they're there, he trusts them, which I think is a beautiful thing to feel. Because I'm pitching stuff to him, like, I pitched to him like Smoke throwing the knife to stab the snake. Like on my first day when I showed up on location, I'm like, we were talking about it, and I was like, oh man, if they're in sync and they're like, they got to do a lot of stuff where like they're not even seeing each other. They're just like, they're in unison, boom, boom, boom. Everything is like automatic. It isn't like a thought. It isn't like heads up. It's like throw it, clap, slide it. So like when the snake is pulled back, he's like, all right, throw me the knife, boom. You know what I mean? And we shot it on his iPhone as him and Amar, his assistant, were there. They acted it out. I filmed it. He watched it. He's like, oh, right on, yeah. And I didn't think nothing of it, but he used it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's a lot of stuff like that he's used that are suggestions from everybody, actors, DP. You know what I mean? Like he's a good director because he brings it all together.
I think that's what makes a great film is a director that knows that everybody has something to bring, and he trusts the flavor of what everybody brings.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is, to me, that's the star quality of a good director, is that it's they understand that. And he said this. I don't know if he told me this or if I heard it in one of his talks that he's given. But no, I think he told me. But it was basically like, you don't go far by yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, at the time, I was like, I'm not buying that. I'm going far by myself, bro. And then the more I get into it, the more I appreciate that idea of like, you know what? It's kind of like politics. I heard this thing about politics. It was like, politics is about addition, not subtraction, right? And I like that idea because when you're talking about actual, like not as we know it, but the idea of it, it's communal, right? You want to bring people together for the same points. Not everyone's going to agree, but you want the lion's share to be in contact with the same idea of what it's going to be. And I think films are the same. You know what I mean? It's like Ryan's still in charge. You never thought Ryan didn't know what he wanted. You knew he knew what he wanted, but he wanted to push it. He wanted to get out of his own head and see it through another person's eyes so he can make an informed decision. Yeah. I think really good directors I've worked with have done that, in a lot of ways. Yeah. Some are good at just elevating it.
And I was going to ask you, obviously, like you said, you had the privilege and the honor to be able to work with and around him. what was kind of that thing nugget? I'm sure you picked up a ton of nuggets just watching him do his work. But was there, one thing that you could say, hey, man, just watching him do this is it's just elevated my thinking of how to filmmake and put stories together.
Well, Ryan's great. He, I think that, like, I just love how, like, genuine he is. As he's a human being first, a director second, which I think that's the most rarest quality that I've experienced in my life working with people.
Yeah.
Is that oftentimes they're directors first, human beings second. So there leaves a little bit of room for, like, oh, I'm sorry I yelled at you because I had a bad day and I didn't get my way. I didn't mean it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Ryan's not like that. He's very much, in tune with who he's talking to and why, but it doesn't mean he's super available. So the thing I took away from Ryan that I loved was boundaries. I think he's exceptionally great with boundaries in terms of, like, how much time to give people and how much to lean in, because when you're trying to get stuff done, you can't lean in a ton. You know what I mean? You got to kind of, like, lean in enough to kind of keep moving, but you have to have your internal engine moving you towards your goal. And it's something that I struggle with is, like, boundaries, you know what I mean? Going like, I need to stop teaching so I can just focus on myself.
Yeah.
But I feel like I lose part of myself if I'm not working in a situation like that, where I'm talking with other artists and, like, having some sort of back and forth where it's not necessarily I'm teaching. I might be the more experienced person in the room, but it's really a conversation of artists, you know what I mean? Talking about it from different degrees of where they're at in their career, or as human beings, you know what I mean? So that informs me because it reemphasizes stuff, but it also keeps me to the point where I'm like, I get invigorated by it. I get reminded of how this is, like, such a beautiful medium. And when I watch Ryan, his love for film and the way he conducts himself with his boundaries, but yet you don't feel like there's boundaries, right?
Yeah.
You don't feel the boundaries.
Yeah.
I just feel like that he kind of is locked in with what he needs to do. He's very approachable. He calls you out and, hey, Louis, come over here and meet Michael B. Oh, okay, what's up, Mike? How's it going, man? Like, he brings you in, you know what I mean? But he's never, like, over the top with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just felt like I felt so a part of a project. For 3 weeks, I felt as a part of the project as I have something I've worked on for 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so, because it's very intense, right? It's like I'm getting stuff done. I'm pitching stuff. He's coming by my cubicle that I'm in this warehouse that we're working in, and I'm pitching him stuff right there, and he's giving me notes, and he's looking at the drawings I have up on my wall, because I can't, like, I have to, like, draw, put it up. I have to make a nest because I'm building this movie in my mind as I'm boarding it, because I got it, because luckily I was able to board like 80% of it. So it was like I was always on it. And then I kind of ran the team to make sure we got the rest of it. Because Ryan, the one thing he told me was, I said, what do you want to do with this, Ryan? And he's like, how much you trying to get done? Because we have 3 months. And he's like, I want the whole thing. And I was like, all right, bro, like a whole thing. Sure. We're going to get that. We're going to do all that. Okay. And I want $1 million, bro, just to say, to just drop in my lap. And it's probably more like $1 billion.
Man.
But, we made it happen because and part of what made it happen was that he didn't have the time to iterate as much as he probably would have liked. But I think that having it was a great stepping stone, or at least a discussion, a thing to have a discussion with the DP to kind of have a better idea of what they're going to try and shoot when they're there.
Yeah.
Right. Even how they adjust. Right. Because once it goes through also working with the actors, the blocking changes, like the feeling changes, so they find the angles. But at least they had something to start with, which I think is what he wanted in terms of, like, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to have something to, I have a book. So when we show up, we can run through it and talk about it in terms of the shots with the DP. Maybe the actors look at it, because my boards aren't really for the actors. Actually, I was laughing because I posted some boards on Instagram, and someone says, I always wanted to know what an R-rated Pixar movie looked like. And I was like, oh, damn. Like, I guess so, huh? Like, maybe, because I didn't think I drew like that cartoony, but I was like, maybe I do. It's like, you got to put yourself out there and find out what people think and shit, like what they have to say. And I was like, oh, man. All right, yeah. But I mean, and it's only because I never saw myself as like a animator style, board artist, because it's a different idea in my mind. It's more like Disney. Like, Disney has an idea of, like, you need to be able to read the board from across the room. Very simplistic staging, right?
Yeah.
More for character, right? More for acting and stuff like that. Totally get it. But I came up under Brad, and like, Mark Andrews and these other people that were like very much about like pushing the medium storyboards in animation, lock it in, have it like, tell stories with the camera, right? Use the camera, think about the rhythm. And that's where I kind of really learned my craft, was through that. So that's the lens that I looked through first. And that made it easier for me to transition from animation to working in live action, because I'm always thinking in terms of telling stories through shots, right? What's the
And the
information? How
position
do
of
I
the
set it up?
camera and where the
Yeah.
camera is. Okay.
Yeah, just kind of like, what's the best way to showcase this scene to make it interesting, right? How you place the camera and orientation to the characters is everything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm curious because you said, uh, you know, you didn't quite get that scene, the dance scene. How would you have approached it had you been given that scene to, how would you have sat down and thought about, just storyboarding it out?
I don't know, to be honest. Unless I actually did it, I will never know, because it wasn't what the boards are great. I got it a little bit more in the boards, but I didn't understand it in the context of the movie or the story,
Mm,
because it was, to me, it was so far out of a vampire film or the Southern Gothic kind of ideal,
yeah.
that I was like, I don't understand this, right? And part of it was because you needed the musicality to be in the film to understand it, right? You needed that context. So it wasn't until I got that music in the film, when I started seeing it play out, where the music now made sense,
Mm,
right? And I'm going to share something with you that, that maybe a lot of people don't know, is that the way in which the script was originally written is not exactly how the film ended up, in terms of like, all the pieces are the same, but the way Ryan
yeah.
and the team, edit team, were able to recontextualize the scenes and find a rhythm that made it even more, like strong.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was, the script I read was great. I read it and I was like, hell yeah, Ryan! Like, this is about like we're talking freedom. Like, this, I love this. You know what I mean? Like, what freedom means through a vampire, analogy is amazing to me,
Yeah.
right?
I
Because
thought the
they're
context
the
of how he wrapped that, yeah, and how he wrapped the
right.
story was really great. Um,
That's what I love about it. That's what makes it special compared to a lot of films, is that it's entertaining, but it actually is entertaining around a human element, right? A question of freedom, a question of, using a genre piece, like vampires, to go, vampires have all the freedom in the world because they live forever. Yet they're trapped in the sense that they can never see sunlight again, which is very much a very big function of our lives. If we're all living in caves, it's solitary confinement, right? We love to see the sun. Like, this is a
yeah.
part of us. So you lose an aspect of yourself and you become something else. And that's not freedom either, right? And so
Yeah.
what is the ultimate freedom? Is it death, right? Like the brother, like what is freedom? What does it
Yeah.
mean? Like, how do you find it, right? And I'm like, I love this, right? I just love this because it's so fun, but yet there's that rooted element that just was like pulling me along, So when
Yeah.
I got to that scene, I didn't understand how it was in the context of freedom. But like Ryan told me, like, he was just kind of like, because I asked him after the screening, I was like, bro, is this about, like, did you mean to have, like, like culture vampires? Like, is that what this is about? And he's like, no, man, I'm not trying to make a comment like that. Like, he goes, I just wanted this to be a meal of a movie. Like, so I'm talking about a lot of stuff. And
He wanted it to be. I'm sorry. He wanted it to be a what kind of movie?
a meal of a movie. Like, he
Oh, a
wanted this to
meal of
be
a
like
movie.
he wanted this to be a meal, not like popcorn. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
it to be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's weighty and substantial, and
Yeah.
he did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the amount of layers that he put in and the way he tooled it was just,
Yeah.
masterful, because I
Yeah.
just,
I agree. I thought he did a magnificent job. Like I said, people were, people had their opinions about it one way or the other. But
yeah,
like I said, I didn't. I went into it knowing, like I said, it wasn't gonna be like this, and I don't think he meant it to be like this over the top vampire movie. It wasn't meant to be like a horror, really scary vampire movie. So I went into it knowing kind of what he was trying to, the tone of what he was trying to say and how he put it in the context of Jim Crow, the South type, that type of thing. Only thing that got me that I was kind of a little confused on in the beginning was just the Irish aspect of the vampire. That was the thing that took me a second. But then as I watched his, some of his interviews and why he pulled in the Irish, and he was talking about, just the inspiration of it, and then in the context of the dance scene where all the the ethnicities, just they fuse together. That's where everything comes from. It's this fusion of us together.
Yeah.
So I think he did a masterful job at what he was trying to convey, and in the context of the genre that he put it in.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that it feels culturally specific, yet it also feels like it's for everybody. Like it's not it's the detail aesthetic of it that makes it feel, and it's very attention to the detail.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But also that the fact that it doesn't just stay there, it expanded beyond that to make it a human experience. I just thought was amazing to me, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It just is. You know what I mean? Making good films is hard to do.
And
let alone like this kind of conceptual idea.
And from original, like I said, it wasn't a rehash of any type of thing. Something like
No.
that. So that's why I'm excited about, what he's going to do moving forward with just his original ideas. I don't want, can't really dig into it too deep, but I know a big thing about that was just the deal he did with Warner on it. Do you see more studios kind of taking that risk of, okay, hey, you can have your IP back after a certain period. We can both make money off of this. It's yours, type of thing. Or do you feel like that's an anomaly type of thing of Warner Brothers kind of gets it, type of thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like I always feel like the studios gaining trust of studios to like kind of like keep bankrolling you to make stuff. It's kind of like, for them, it must feel like gambling every time, regardless. But like certain directors seem like they are less of a gamble than others, right? So I feel like I think studios would want to do this with very like there's only, let's put it in perspective, right? There's like maybe a small percentage of filmmakers that when they come out with something that's really thoughtful, it's entertaining, and it has everything that studios need to trust that it'll make a good amount of money to make money about. So like, what we're talking about here is not necessarily like this is an idea or a thing that they want to do. I think it'll happen for like the Kuglers, the Nolans, these filmmakers that end up
and all of that,
like these ones that make movies that people continually go to see, that bring it. Like there's a new guy, he's new to me anyways. He did Maverick and F1. I forget his name. That director's been set for a while.
Yeah.
He's had two bona fide hits. One was IP, like one was a sequel and one was IP. I'm like, not IP. F1 isn't really IP, but it's kind of a known thing. But anyways, it's still a racing movie, and a lot of people went to go see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's relatively original because it's not based on anything. It's just based on a brand, which you could say that's what people are going to the theaters to see right now are brands. You know what I mean? Like the Minecraft, like Coogler's film is like, Coogler's kind of a brand, I think, you know what I mean? In terms of what he makes. Spielberg's a brand, Nolan's a brand, Gerwig is a brand. You look at these filmmakers and then you couple that with like live action remakes and sequels and prequels to other things. And now they have a good blanket of how to, still kind of make stuff that's interesting, So it'll be interesting to see, but I still go back to like, I think the days where the studios kind of dictate because of money, dictate what can and can't be made, I think is going away. I think they're going to have to move into a new cycle of procuring, movies that they can put on their platforms to put in the theaters, to own it maybe for a certain amount of time to make money off of it, and then the rights come back. I do think that this is the world that we're moving towards. I mean, I don't know if it's for everybody, but I do feel like in my thinking of where we're going, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, you got a lot of streaming platforms now that are cropping up that are giving creators these opportunities. I don't know if I love Tubi. So, so platforms like that just, for those, independent creators and filmmakers that, may not, are just getting started, or their idea is definitely not in the mainstream kind of form. It gives them a platform that can expose them and, like I said, help them to refine. Obviously, the more you do, you refine your skill and your craft. That's everybody wants to continually do more, from where they start. That's how they get better. But like I said, I think, companies like Netflix, for example, they're nimble enough. Netflix is, I think they found an interesting spot to where they throw out a lot of creative ideas. I mean, I don't know if they're in that would be in that vein of giving back IP after a certain amount of years.
No.
But they are more nimble than say like Sony, Disney, you know, where they're not locked into this culture of what they put out, and they can afford to take these chances on more edgier or more different kinds of content, be it animated or film, that people can choose from.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I think that's the beauty about streaming platforms in general is I think as artists, it gives us a place to potentially like hone our craft. You know what I mean? Because I think, you know, streaming for me is like very much a sea of entertainment, right? And it's like, it's hard to find places that you want to stay or places that are interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's so much, right? And their whole thing is to like every month have more stuff that brings you back. So like this continual chasing of the carrot aspect of streaming is, I think, great for us. You know what I mean? Creatives in terms of like being able to hone stuff because they just need it.
Yeah. But
you know, the hard part I have with streaming is that I do love the theater experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I maybe it's because I grew up with it. You know, I find it more important than like say Gen Z does right now, but. I don't know that. I don't know if that's a fact even because I'm not Gen Z, so I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that. You know, I can't die on that hill because I don't know. Yeah. But I have to take in consideration that it's different from mine because I was different from my parents. And my parents are different from theirs, and every generation adjusts and changes for their time. So I don't quite know what it is, but this is what I always fall back on: is that if it has something to offer, if it's looking at entertaining an audience, and your craft is good. There's a place for it in this world. And I think there is an audience, right? And a worthwhile audience to have, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I think that's all that really matters. You know, it's like, yeah, you want everyone in the world to love your film, you know, just like you want everyone in the world to love you, so to speak, you know what I mean? But the reality of the situation is all I really want to do is find people that, you know, that challenge me as a human being, that are honest with me as a human being, like that we can have, you know, real interaction and not be like, you know, family style where it's like, well, that's the family you're born with, so if someone's kind of like that, you just have to deal with it. You know, it's like, no, the family you choose, the ones you grow to kind of gain around you, have got to be ones that make you a better human being, and hopefully you do the same for them.
No, I totally agree, and you definitely want to surround yourself around those people that push you, you know, and make you better as a person, you know.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody, let me take this down and throw this up there, Mr. Dewan, because this is a big one too.
Oh man,
having a photogenic memory of how finalized cartoons are composed can help out when storyboarding. It gives you a sense of how many panels per scene to add for a specific action and how to stage them. I guess it's different, like you said, when you're boarding for animation versus, like you said, boarding for live action. You know what they're looking for and how you kind of present. You know what you're showing. Like a lot of the storyboards, like I said, that I've seen for animation are basically comic books that are just you know all laid out, as opposed to like a long shot of what the visual, like what I guess you're thinking from the camera. Well, I guess you are from, you know, animation as well, but a little differently with live action from the camera, you know, because I know like with Sinners, it was really cinematic. I guess because he was using IMAX, you know, he wanted to catch as much of the scene as he possibly can. So it was like almost like that Dances with Wolves type, where you got this landscape that you want everybody to kind of get the scope of type of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's. I think he's a cinematic filmmaker. And Autumn, who's the DP, she's awesome. She's married to another amazing DP who was a DP of one of my favorite films from a look standpoint, Macbeth from 2017, right? And with Michael Fassbender, and it's amazing how much they bring to the look and quality of the film. Like, I think Autumn's amazing. Like, honestly, like she is just dope. She did Wakanda as well. She had shot for Sofia Coppola. I mean, she's just
that's what I like about Ryan. when he finds somebody good, he sticks with. I guess the
Yeah.
person that scored, he is the one he went to school with. I forget his name, Ludwig.
Yeah.
Scores all his
Baranison.
films and stuff. So when you find good people that, like you said, are collaborative, you work well with them, they get who you are, they get your vision of what you're trying to do, man, just makes it so much easier working through projects.
And it's not even that, man. Like, it's just not just that, right? It's like, yeah, he does that, and he works with like Ludwig is like his homeboy, like from SC, like not even just like a dude he works with. That's like they came up together.
Yeah, came up
He
together.
stayed with Ludwig. You know what I mean? Like that, they're tight. So that's an amazing friend to have in general, right? Like this, like one talented filmmaker with a talented, like extremely talented, both around the same age, coming up at the same time. It doesn't happen, right? But I love that, and him and Zinzi and his team have all built this really family feeling, production company in proximity media. They, like Zev, who is another founding member, and producer at Proximity, went to SC with them as well, who's a filmmaker as well. That to me is why I love it. It's like all these filmmakers at the top making decisions, trying to make good films. You know what I mean? So it was really fun to be around that. But I mean, again, I go like, that's a great team to have as a start to even begin anything. Everybody else you bring on, you know what I mean? Like, I'm glad he sticks with Autumn. Autumn's amazing, but if he got somebody else, they would have as just as an amazing skill set, but in a different way, you know what I mean? To bring to a different look to a film. So yeah, I mean, shit. Every time he does a movie, I hope he asks me to help. You know what I mean? Because no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to help him a little bit. If I'm directing something, I'm still going to board a thing or two for him because like.
Well, you go out of your way, and
like
I think that's, like I said, that shows the mark of a good person. When somebody will go out of their way because, like I said, they just enjoy working with you. Hey, whatever you need, whatever you need.
Pretty much. I mean, like, I think with Ryan, like, what I love about when we work together is not like we have like these, I consider us to be friends, but it's not like, when I say that, it's not the same as like, friends you go hang out with and go have a drink and like you confide in. This is like creative friends. It's like ever since I met the dude, like he was great for me because I never heard anyone kind of talking like me. I mean, like he's got it more like I used to talk when I got in animation, you know what I mean? Like, but there was a similar sensibility in the way we kind of saw the world in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? Like things that we can say to each other that he got, you know what I mean? Which I'm not used to. I wasn't used to in animation because it was a completely different space from where I came from. And so when I talked to him when I first met him, that was great enough. Was the felt like there was someone like me making good shit, right? And I was like, oh man, it made me feel like I could do it now. You know what I mean? To a certain extent. But what I love about him is that it's not just that. This dude is like listening. He's very in tune with himself, like in terms of what he's trying to do. And I think that that's a big thing to have as artists. Is like when we had that, you had that lineup. It was like having a photographic memory. Or I have the least photographic memory. Like I don't have very good memory at all. But what I do look for when I board, and this is where me and Ryan really connect when we work together, is I'm always asking him what the ceiling, I'll be like, I feel like this scene is like this, right? This is the feeling it's giving me. Is that what you were going for in the script pages? And he'd be like, yes or no. And if it's, whatever it is, it creates a conversation. We can talk about what it's supposed to feel like. Because that's all he needs. He's not trying to tell me the shots. He's not trying to tell me how to act. He's not giving me specifics. And if he has something, he'll tell me. But more times than not, we're really conversating over, like we're trying to figure out what the feeling of the scene is. And that way I can kind of come into it and be in the right place for him so that he can make adjustments as needed. But it's not like he has to blow the whole thing up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the collaboration is great that way because that's how I work is like, I'm not trying to just, because it's funny you should say like, comic books as a way to describe storyboards, because animators and animation tends to be animators that are, animation is a transition to storyboarding, right? And storyboarding tends to kind of want to emulate animation to a certain degree in animation storyboards because you want to see more acting and whatnot. In live action, there's far more storyboard artists that are comic book artists. And so the way they approach it is more like a comic book. And yeah, they can stage in the frame and all that. But when you see them execute the drawings, it feels like comic book drawings, right? And it's funny for me because I was like, I'm in the middle. You know what I mean? Like I kind of I love comics, but I love animation. So for me, it's like, okay, the camera, the pacing, and the storytelling is everything to me, right? Acting, I just want to have it gestured in. I don't know if it's right because I'm not trying to be right. The actors are going to block it and find out what works best for them. I want to know what it feels like, where the camera's at, what the pacing is, how we're leading up to a change, what needs to be changed in the scene, meaning that, there's always in every scene, there's a 3-act structure, right? There's always a emphasis point at which we shape, kind of change, enlighten new material, but there's always should be a progression to a change that launches in the next thing, right? And so that to me is what I love about filmmaking and storytelling, especially storyboarding in general, is that's what I love to do. That's the craft and of that I try and make better every time, that I try and understand a little bit more every time, because to me, I'm trying to reinforce how to entertain and make a scene compelling. So when I make my own, I can do that and have people compelled to like feel something for it. You know what I mean? Because it isn't just the act alone. It's what you're bringing to it and what you're trying to get to.
Oh. Now, like I said, we're looking at some of the boards from Sinners. This looks like what was it? I forget her name. That was another thing I loved about
Annie.
obviously, the movie was he had, like I said, just black actors, black. Sometimes they go like light skin, dark, but it was just great seeing a dark black man with a dark black woman, in the thing. Now I know that wasn't his like intention, but I'm talking about just the ancillary stuff people pick up that really impresses upon them. And that's, I think, the thing with filmmaking, whether it's animation or live film, you never know what's going to resonate or connect with a person. And I think, those little slight things make a big, big difference to some, to some people. And it's just a common thread that I think, like I said, goes between us all,
It does, but like they're not, but there's no but there. Just a transition to go back. Those choices. Another thing I love about Ryan's filmmaking is that he doesn't play in the middle. He makes very specific choices, and then figures out how to dramatize it and make it entertaining so that it doesn't come off as a weird choice like some movies feel like. You know what I mean? So like I don't know what his decision making was in terms of like who he selected as actors. But I'll tell you this, I always feel like he's selecting the best people for the parts that he can see, right? And who bring themselves that embody what he's looking for. And I think that that's beautiful. Because like, like everyone was kind of like, oh, Michael B, did you meet Michael? Like my family was like, did you meet Michael B? My daughter was like, did you meet Michael B? And I was like, I met him.
Did you get a picture? I want a picture.
Yeah, right. So I met him, whatever. Like, and I was like, it was cool because he's a good dude or whatever. Like, very focused, artist type. He was actually like the time I met him, he was kind of kicking game to little Sammy. I forget the name of the kid that was playing it, but he was a nice guy too. But I was more excited by meeting Delroy Lindo because he's an actor I love, right? Like he's a guy that's been in so many good movies, such a great actor. And to me, I was like, that was the first thing I told Ryan after the meeting. I was like, dude, Delroy killed it, bro. Delroy killed it. He's the best. He's like, to me, he was one of the best characters in the movie because he had so much range in that movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like even Cornbread, like the dude who played Cornbread, Charles, I think it is. Yeah. He's another character actor I like, but like to see him in this manner, I just love. Like he did this little weird dance. He was doing that thing. I was like, I love that. It's so weirdly specific. You know what I mean? Like these are the things that people bring that allow things to elevate. They don't feel cookie cutter, right? He could have been like doing some raise the roof type shit, but he was doing some weird like playing music, but not really kind of shit. And I'm like, this is where movies elevate in terms of their specific pieces that you bring. Everyone brings it. This is why a team's important. This is why being on the same page is important. This is why being allowed or being encouraged to like participate and being in the moment matters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you find that lightning in a bottle. You find the bigger thing than you would have had based on whatever world that you have in your head. You can only know so much.
Yeah. And like I said, I think when you give people a little ownness in what they create and do, like you said, it just elevates it to the next level. When you allow people to bring their own flavor and add it to what you're trying to do, like I said, it elevates it. It may show you something different that you hadn't have thought about before. It just takes the whole project as a whole to this stratosphere of a level where it makes a lot of money. You don't spend a lot, but it makes a lot of money. So I think that says a lot.
But that again, that goes back to like, sometimes great movies don't come out at the right time, so they don't make the movie. They don't make the money.
Yeah.
Like Iron Giant was like that. It was a movie we were all super proud of.
Iron Giant was like that. I mean, it's a cult classic, but it didn't really do at the box office per se. Type of thing.
But to me, it's one of the greatest animated films. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so like box office doesn't always equate great movies. I think timing is everything. Yeah. But I think that what gives things legs, again, goes back to like what you brought to it. So Iron Giant can be a cult classic and still be talked about in the hallowed halls of greatness in terms of animated films, because once you've seen it, you love it. And how you saw it in the theater, at home, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But when you did see it, it had that profound effect on you. Yeah. And that to me is what I feel like I want to strive for every time I work on something, especially on my own, is I want it to strive to be something interesting. I don't want to strive just to make it. I don't think movies are widgets. I don't think movies are about me. I don't think it's me that makes it great. I don't need if I ever make a movie, Don, hold me to this. If I ever make a movie and I put a Louis Gonzales film, if you ever see me, just punch me in the face as hard as you can. I give you all the, this is like legally binding, right? Punch me square in the face.
So do you think that's a vanity thing, or
no?
That you put your name on it, or type of thing, or what?
No. It's not a comment on anybody else besides how I feel about it. Like, I think sometimes it's just part of like what it takes to sell a film. Like if Ryan's making a film, you want people to know Ryan's making the film, because that's going to bring a certain amount of box office, right? Film. Yeah. But I don't know if Ryan puts Ryan Coogler film before his films, by the way. I don't know that to be a fact, and I don't know either way. But regardless.
I don't think he did it for Black Panther, but I want to say he did it for, I thought I saw advertisement for Sinners where it was they put a Ryan Coogler film, or a
trailer is different,
real small
than the movie.
But it wasn't big. Yeah, it wasn't like really big or anything like that. But I know, like, obviously, Colin was really famous for it. John Carpenter, John Carpenter film, type of thing. But
and it's an interesting thing. I felt like, believe me, it's not like a knock on anybody that does it. I understand it's a component to get people to come in.
Yeah, get people to come
but
in.
Idealistically speaking, I'm like, to me, it's like I want people to enjoy it for what it is and be surprised by it. And so if they see it and they're like, oh shit, that was made by Louis? Oh, I like his films. No wonder. Like, it's like I'd rather the work speak for itself, just on an idealistical level, right? Ideological, right? Idealistical, I don't think is a real word, but just on a level that I believe in. Like, I just want the movies to speak for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, because I know that's part of a salesmanship tool for studios, is to put that, right? Because it's, again, brand, right? Spike Lee's a brand, Nolan's a brand, Spielberg's a brand, like they're known entities that have made good films that people love.
They put butts in the seats.
Yeah. So like in terms of salesmanship and business, I get it, but like I love the idea just that I just want to make films, and it's not about me. Like, although from a sales standpoint, it probably would have to be if I made something that was good a few times. Yeah. But it's interesting. Yeah. So feel free, if I ever do that, just please blast me in the face. If it's on the movie, not in the trailer though, not in the trailer. Okay. Just if it's in the movie. That's how it starts.
Okay. You guys heard that. So if Lewis ever does that, we get to blast him.
I didn't invite the whole army. I didn't invite the Color Emotion Army. I invited you, Don.
Oh, okay.
I only want one blast in the face. I don't want to go to the hospital.
I
can't mess with the money maker,
it's just me.
bro.
It's just me. I get to do that.
Yeah, I invited you.
Oh man. So what other? I mean, like you said, you got the kind of storytelling bug. You've got the directorial debut of NONA and working on other fields. What are some of the things, moving forward? Some of the stories that are inside Lewis that you want to get out and feel like you're just itching to kind of try,
bro. I have ideas I want to explore that I don't think I'll live long enough to do. You know what I mean? I have a stack of stories that I would like to get through, but to give each one its time to get it done which would probably be at least a year if I was just working on that by itself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, then, okay, realistically, if I had time to do it by myself each year, I'd probably get it done because, you know, you needed a year to get it sold and prepped and all that kind of stuff. Then you need to work on it, get the script ready, which is probably another year. And then you need about a year and a half production. So you're looking at, you know, 3 to 4 years without a bump or a hitch in the game.
Yeah.
You know, this is what makes Sinners exceptionally awesome to me, is that he wrote that film like in the fall, pitched it in December, got the green light, started working on it like in kind of crewing up and figuring out everything in January, talked to me and probably other directors, other actors and whatnot by February. This thing was shooting by June, I think it was, is when we started shooting. It was done within almost a year to the day from when they sold it. So it was 1 year to make Sinners, is what I'm saying. Unheard of at that scale, with this scope, at that budget price. Unheard of, bro. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard of it.
Do you think it would have been as easy for Ryan had he not had the success with Black Panther and Fruitville? You know, if they were just kind of mainstream, do you think it would have been as quick of a process to get Sinners done?
Well, I mean, I think having had all those reps on both small scale to big scale has got to inform him in some way, right? Yeah. Working on both budgetary constraints, you know, I think that I don't see how it hurt. You know, I mean, I only see how it helped. But you know, again, I'm not him, and we've never talked about it enough to really kind of know in one way or another. But I would assume, I mean, because like you hear directors talk about that all the time. Ryan said it, Tarantino said it, and they've both said that after the second movie, you feel like you know what you're doing, but you need 2 movies to feel like that. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, if his second movie is Creed, and then he goes into Black Panther where he starts to know what he's doing, which is an even bigger scale thing. He didn't just get to he didn't get to do the thing he was comfortable with. He escalated it to another degree where he had to make himself comfortable. You know, he had to figure it out again. So if there's anyone in this world that's like comfortable being uncomfortable, that leaps at, you know, risks like that, and not in a bad way, but like in an educated risk way, it's this guy. And I don't think anyone, I don't know, like, you know, he's probably up there, you know, with the directors that, you know, I don't know any many directors that work harder than this guy, you know, really, truly, like in the edit room, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
I think that part of it is just the way he works. You know, he's not, I mean, he doesn't seem to be, he seems to be about filmmaking and entertainment, and like, that's what he loves.
You could tell he's a film aficionado, which is how he talks and just how he talks about film and his process. Like I said, I haven't seen him, don't know him or anything like that, but you can just, like I said, you can tell he's a student of film.
Yeah. That's something I loved about Sinners, was that this was the most press he's ever done for any movie, I think. You know what I mean? Where he's out there talking a lot about film.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because even a guy like me who's worked with him a bit, I mean, I've worked with him since Black Panther, right? He, there's things I'm learning about him and his film taste that I would never get, because when we interact, it isn't always just a hangout interact. It's usually over work, and then we bond over film. But even within that, bonding over film, it's like I still was learning more about his tastes and what he likes, you know what I mean, in terms of that. Yeah. And he's a film lover, man, like just through and through, man. Like I think like Spielberg, like Brad, you know, like anybody that's made some great films, I'm sure all has to come from a place of like extreme obsession and love.
Yeah. And he seems to stay really grounded. I think that's another thing that just, you know, really sticks with me. I know it's strange that I heard that, but, you know, somebody had to say it. What the rub was the way he talks, you know, in his interviews. It was just, somebody was saying, well, you think with all that money, he talking a little bit different. I'm like, well, people
you know, here's the thing.
Kinds of stuff, type of thing.
Well,
but I love the fact that he stays grounded in the way he talks is the way he talks and explains things, and, you know, you get it.
Yeah, but I mean that kind of comment really annoys me too, because it's like, why does someone who makes a lot of money have to speak a certain way, right?
Hey,
B,
I'm with you.
Because how many people we know how to speak well sold us snake oil? How many people we know that speaks well had taken Medicaid and like shit, like services that people need away from them, right? So at a certain point, what are we really looking for when we hear people talk, right? I believe it's what Ryan brings. It's kind of like there's a truth to who he is. Like he's not trying to play up anybody. He is a sincere film-loving filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so like how he speaks, what you should say is, I'm surprised he's as honest as he is. I'm surprised I actually feel like I understand him. He feels like a human being.
Yeah.
That's the comment I'd make, because I'm so used to hearing people sell shit that I should be like, we're all tired of you lying. Like no one needs the TED Talk box with your hands and like how you're presenting and, you know, being a robot. Like, man, get out of here with that shit. Like, because we need more honesty in this world. We don't need no more projection. We don't need no more fake it till you make it. Yeah. We need to be honest and clear with each other and be who we are so that we can empathize and understand and feel like, hey, the world doesn't have to be my way, but you know what? It's beautiful that it's not. It's beautiful that it's mixed. It's beautiful that we have different avenues and ways. Yeah. I mean, if we just thought about people like food, I mean, I would say lion's share of people love to try different cuisines. You know what I mean? No one's just sticking to their plain old peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. And you don't want anything bland, and you got to add seasoning to have flavor. And seasoning is just, you got to add different things to add flavor to it. Nobody wants anything bland.
Done. I went to Japan a while ago, right? Like in 2006 or something like that. I was doing it for the Ratatouille press tour, and I was lucky enough they sent me, right? And I was there for a week, right? 7 days, and it was a beautiful trip, right? Up and down the coast. I was hitting different cities, doing the press junket, drawing for shows, all kinds of fun stuff. But food wise, I had to get used to how less seasoning and how more subtle the flavoring is with Japanese food.
Yeah.
So by the time when I first got there, I was like, I need some spice, you know. But by the time I was done, I really was tasting things I had never tasted before in food and how subtle and delicious it was, right? When I flew home, oh man, I couldn't wait to get back into the Bay. I got out and my wife was like, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, we got to go to In-N-Out, please. You know, can you stop by the drive-thru? And we stopped at the drive-thru, bro, and I got my double with fries and a Coke. And I couldn't even wait to get home. We had a 5-minute drive, but I was already ripping into that. I wanted a burger, right? I felt like I was eating a brick of salt, bro. I was like, boom. I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like I felt like someone played a trick on me and gave me the salt burger. You know what I mean? And I was just like, damn, like I didn't realize how different it was. And I just love that. You know?
Oh man. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of
that. I think you don't realize that until you go out of the country. How we eat.
Yeah. You know, I mean, like I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It took me a week to kind of get back into like, okay, then it tasted the same to me after a week. But that first one was whoa. Talk about kicking the mouth with salt.
We go a little salt heavy and sugar heavy over here. Oh, just a little bit. Yeah, there's this one. It's on Facebook, but it's these two British guys, and what they do is they give American food to British kids, and you see their responses and stuff. This is hilarious. They're saying, "Man, they eat this over there."
Yeah.
It's just different. Yeah, you can totally tell. Like I said, we go a little heavy on the, which is guess why we're obese and sick all the time.
There's with sickness, there's never exactly one thing. It's a culmination of problems, right? But I would say
our health, our eating habits plays a lot. When you go outside of the country, like I said, I got a shot glass. I collect shot glasses. And a friend of mine went to London and brought me a shot glass, and it was really tiny. It wasn't even half the size of our shot glasses over here. It's just you see the difference in portions from here versus in other places.
Come on, bro. It's America. We got to do it big.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that, like for real, like you look at, so those kids don't like our food, but like you look at our industry in terms of what our food is and how it's changed even over the last 40 years.
Yeah.
It's different, and to look at the ingredients and what passes for what, and how often we've been sold different things like bacon and eggs is a breakfast standard. You know what I mean? Like, why? Well, because guess what?
Advertising.
Edward and Bernays and the farmers got together and were like, how can we help you, sirs? Well, we want to sell more eggs and stuff like that. Okay, well, what can we do? Well, guess what? Everybody, bacon and eggs. That's where it's at.
Yeah.
And we bought it, and it's fine because, we were at a place where we trusted, everybody, right? And
Yeah.
now we're at a place where who do you trust, right? We don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
I just feel like, that's why we're so divided. How do you trust anybody?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think really going outside of your surroundings is and experiencing other people is the best way. I think really the only way to go through this life because, like I said, when you can't just surround yourself around people that look like you and speak like you and talk like you. I mean,
Yep.
you gotta want to experience different places, different cultures, different foods. Just you may not like it, but try it. And like I said, there's some stuff. Honestly, I would probably have a hard time trying to eat if I was, really. But
I know exactly the thing. That what is that? The millennial duck, right? The one that's in the egg that's all like
oh
black.
yeah. There's a
I
lot
was
of
like,
stuff.
I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, I would love to know that I could. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't think I'd walk into a place and be like, oh, let me get one of those. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't know.
But I have an appreciation for those ones that, you see all those, especially like the food, those ones that go around the country and try different foods and stuff like that. I have an appreciation for those ones that can try stuff and just, I'll try it, it's like,
Yeah.
but again, you have a better appreciation of how people live and just their everyday life when you step outside of yourself, visit other countries, see how other people eat, things that you wouldn't think.
Absolutely. Like, I think generationally, like when I was young, like, my mom had grew up in Colorado, right? Like in
Mhm.
the hills, like this place called Leadville. And so they kind of like her dad worked, I forget where he worked, but my grandpa, but she kind of worked on a small plot of land. She lived in a small plot of land. And, like they ate, animals, right?
Yeah.
Like we all do, but they would slaughter them, all that. Like, so cutting chicken heads off and like stripping feathers and all that. Something that doesn't exist really for us these days. But I remember as a kid, and it's interesting because I would be like, I'm a little kid, like, you eat the tongue or whatever. But they would love it, like, oh, let me get the eyeball, let me get the tongue, let me get this, let me get that, and I'm like, as a little kid would be, you know. But we don't get that as much these days, right? You know what I mean? Like, so if I've gone to Mexico or I've gone to other countries and you have a different, take on what food is and like the different part of the body that I normally wouldn't order, I always try and lean into it. You know what I mean? To go like, all right, I need to try it because I think that along the lines of talking about creative and being a director and working with other artists is that this is the stuff that makes it, makes the conversations interesting.
Yeah.
Is that we've tried stuff and we have a point of view, and it isn't like we're all kind of in this, we went to school together, we did here, and like we all kind of are equally ingrained in American culture and we equally are rugged individualists and we all have our opinions. It's like, no, we have life experience to kind of talk about and bounce off each other.
Yeah.
To help each other grow, make each other more grounded, right? Because how many times have you heard a friend go, I just got back from this trip, I went to this place, it was super dope, and like, oh man, I tried the stuff, it was really weird, but I loved it. And you find yourself going like, damn, I want to go. Next time you go, let me know. I want to hit it up,
and experience it. Yeah. And it's just, like I said, we did a family cruise, like a Caribbean cruise, and a bunch of my cousin's friends came, and one of them loved escargot. I had never tried escargot before, or anything like that. She said, hey, go ahead, try one. I'm like, okay, hey, it's a cruise. I tried different, tried stuff that I normally wouldn't have done, and like I said, it's not something, like I said, I would consider, as a delicacy of mine, but, it was something, okay, I tried escargot, different, but I tried it type of thing. So
I never used to like sushi. Like I always like, fish, when I was a kid, like whatever, even through high school. But bro, like now, like once I kind of got the gateway, I don't know what it was anymore. Like, but that gateway sushi that I got that turned me on, like now, I love sushi. Like I have a spot called Butterfish down the street. Like not even down the street, it's like 20-minute drive. But boy, I want to go there every damn day now. I feel like, man, that's what a turn. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
man.
that was something I hated. Now I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get some sushi again. You know what I mean?
Uh, hey, like I said, our tastes, they change and over time. You just never know. I'll tell you.
Bro, and
Everybody.
I'm talking nigiri, not even just the rolls, bro. I'm not even talking like California rolls. I'm talking like fish on rice. Let's go, man. Like just have that delicious
I
meat,
don't know.
like
I
melt in
think
your
I
mouth.
need
Whoa.
mine breaded and fried.
Okay. They have that too.
This is the thing. Like I said, I'm not I'm not a oysters. I can't imagine just slurping down an oyster, but people love it.
I've,
It's type of
I've
thing.
tried it
I
both
like fried
ways.
oysters. I do like oysters. I like fried oysters, but you know. But again, like I said, you try things. Like I said, I've tried octopus. I've tried alligator. Just things that frog. Just things that you would normally like to try. Like I said, some things I'd probably have to be like really on death's door to say, okay, I got to eat something. Let's try this roach. Or
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
bug or
Hey,
tarantula.
people fry that is good.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right?
saying. For some, it's a delicacy, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. As far as we can't imagine. I mean, you may not want to eat it, you may not try it, but you have to be open that not everybody eats like you do, and steaks and stuff
Yes.
like that.
And that's exactly the point. I think like from a creative perspective, like that's what makes your stories richer, right? It's the experience that you went in and you tried it so stories are to me, stories I love, stories I respond to are ones where you can tell they're not judgmental about what's happening. They're not making fun of a culture or an
Yeah,
idea or a way people think. It's always about the discovery of what that is. Now, the reaction might be like you, which makes you laugh, but that's not making fun of it, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of films tend to do that. Stories will be like, it's an easy slam dunk. Let's just kind of like make fun of this, trope of, whatever. And it's not a good thing, right? The good thing is like being respectful. Like I love stories in film because I just feel like you learn a lot about whatever the subject matter, whatever the location, whatever the history, whatever it is you decide to hit it, you have to learn about it so you can empathize and understand and allow
yeah,
it to come out in a way that's less about judging it and having a limited point of view of it, but having a well-rounded view of like just like you would with your characters, you want to have a three-dimensional view of them, right? They have to seem more than just a flat facade.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's kind of like, you get bored of that movie really
yeah,
quick, or
yeah,
that story.
yeah. And it's funny that you said that because I kind of do that, and I think as hard as it is, I think it's a good thing to learn another language as well because
Mhm.
you get to communicate with somebody in their language. And I have this conversation. I'm trying to get better at Spanish. And so I go to a Subway. And the majority of the workers there are Spanish. So I'm ordering. They're teaching me Spanish, and I'm ordering stuff.
Nice.
But we have this conversation about just the difficulty in learning each other's language and have this kind of back and forth. That's the beauty of how it connects you, having,
Absolutely.
wow, yeah. And they're telling me, yeah, it was hard for me to learn English. I had to learn English from watching TV and this and that. And I would tell them, yeah, it's hard learning Spanish because words are kind of twisted. You say
Hmm.
words in reverse. So I'm thinking of, so it's this conversation of just the difficulty in learning how to communicate. That's where we find this common ground and have this conversation that just winds up enriching us both because I learn Spanish, they learn me, and have this conversation back and forth.
Don, you just gave the greatest metaphor for storyboarding and working out a film visually. Storyboards, if you think about it, storyboards are a communication tool, first and foremost. They're not pretty drawing tool. They're not
Yeah,
about me, Louis, and how I draw. They're about how I communicate this idea in this moment with this character in this setting with what's going on. So it's hard for everybody. So that conversation you're having about, you know, how to talk, how to, the differences, that's the conversations that story artists and directors have when we're working on a film. Is like, I see it being said more like this. And I'm like, but I thought it would be cool if it was said like this, like had this emphasis. You know what I mean?
yeah,
That is a metaphor that is completely 100% exactly how I look at it. Is that Storyboards is a communication tool. I think I started as like it's an art tool, and it's I want to draw comic books. I like to draw really well, and I think now that drawing really well is great, but I think it's a detriment to any work, real work, because when you're engaged in the art of what is happening, I think the effectiveness of what's happening goes away, right? Meaning that I don't, not that there's no value in it, because there is. I think that when you're like a storyboard, Kobe or Jordan style, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, they get film, they're just completely in it. They're amazing. I've worked with a few people like that. Yeah. There's a guy that passed on named Garrett Sheldry, who's an amazing story artist, like savant, like just kind of like a guy who like didn't give a shit about art, never talked about art, but when he would do boards, they were just the most amazing things that you can ever want to watch, right? Like he's the guy who basically storyboarded the race at the beginning of Cars, among other things.
Oh wow!
But he did that like in a matter of a couple nights. You know what I mean? Like amazing talent. Anyways, lots of interesting people like that you meet. But it's a conversational tool. It's a means at which we can talk about phrasing and emphasis, like you would if you were telling a joke. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to know where the punchline is. You have to know how to emphasize. Or if you're doing a magic trick, right? How do I lead the audience over here so I can surprise them over here? You have to know where it's going to land so you can develop this trick, and you have to do it in front of people to hone it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it's like. I think that's the best way of thinking about writing, drawing, or making films in general, is just always to keep it on lines with like, that's the clear. When I say clear over clever, clear is always the first goal, right? To get something down, just to see what it is, to kind of help find it in a very clear-eyed, well-lit way. Once you kind of get that idea structured, now you start dimming lights. Now you start bringing in furniture. Now you start adjusting stuff, because now you're trying to create a vibe. You're trying to create a feeling. And so, I think that's where the clever and the specificity and the taste comes in, because you have what it needs to say, but now you're going to address it in all this other subtextual ideas and like feeling that help emphasize the moment, right? What can be a good way. I mean, there's a reason why when people are sad, cue the rain, right? Because everyone knows that rain means sad times in a movie, right?
Yeah.
It's an effective, clear communication tool, So like, but like, how do you subvert that, right? How do you change it? How do you make it interesting again? Yeah. Because you can't just use it like a Hallmark commercial. You got to find an interesting way to do it, right? That's the challenge.
No, that is Mary Cato. Yep, you said it is good to try new stuff. Yeah, gotta try new stuff.
It's not just good; it's necessary. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I think we all kind of come closer when we try new stuff.
Yeah, no, and I think you know how I'd like to do on information that's dropped. Gotta emphasize the point there. Exactly. We've been having, like I said, man, I was totally expecting this. Man, we've gone 3 hours. Holy moly.
Yes, sir.
Gee whiz. This is a marathon here, but it's been a great conversation. Definitely, as always, I rarely get into all the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I do, again, try to be respectful to my audience and my guests. And, Louis, you always know, your family, you're always welcome back on the show, and always glad to have you back on the show, especially as things happen with you, all these big things. Like I said, it's going to be to a point where it's going to be hard to get Louis. It's going to be hard to get Louis on the show.
That's the same, homie. Like, I don't get down like everybody else. Like, to me, it's like, it's about the people. You know what I mean? And I think this was just how I grew up. But I do find that, like, I'm down for mine, like, my people, like, the people that were there before everything got good.
Yeah.
Like, those are the people that you look out for, because, like, it's rare. A lot of people are there for you when it's good.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And that's easy. Yeah. But really, like, I think loyalty is a beautiful thing to have with people, just in terms of, like, what you share, the moments you have, especially when they're, like, just like this, where it's a good conversation. We should have had some shot glasses. You know what I mean? Like, really, this kind of conversation is, to me, like, this is what I like, rather than doing, like, media stuff, where it's like you're talking about, like, your thing. It's like, okay, whatever. But, like, when we talk about real stuff, like how the points of view of creation, of creating art, man, let's go, all day, every day.
Yeah. And see, like I said, I want to, and I've been kind of kicking it around, kind of Color of Motion after hours with a little more deeper conversation type of thing. But I'm like you. I want conversation of substance that, really sticks and people can pull actionable things, really things that will be of value to them. And I think definitely, I try to make the show that and having guests and friends like you that come on and really share deep value that's going to help creatives really makes this such an easy thing for me. That's why I've been doing this for 5 years. Because
well, hey, I'll tell you this: if you ever do the after hours,
uh-huh.
oh, put me on, bro. Like I would say this: like, get a couple of us together. Get me and Dre and a
That's what
couple
I
of
was
people.
thinking.
Like,
Get you,
mm-hmm.
Andre, a couple of, that's why I like Andre, because he's just straight. He's just a straight, no nonsense type of guy. But those kind of conversations are really kind of like you said. We get us. Whoever drinks and likes to drink, we have a drink and just have a real kind of couch conversation about things, that type of stuff. So that is something I've been wanting to do, kind of thing. Maybe moving forward. It's good to know that you're down for that, though. For sure. 'Cause I know some. I got kind of get worried about that because I know a lot of people don't like talking, really talking on the real edge. Some creators are like that, type of thing. So that's why I was kind of hesitant. I'm like, well, how many people are really going to come on and just be themselves type of thing,
Yeah, but you could always help them with that. Like, I think that it's not like, the goal is to be real, but you can also edit it down. Sorry, I'm giving you notes while we're talking about this, but I mean, like, you can always make it work where you just extract the stuff that is kind of like, I mean, it's workable, bro. Like, I think it's a worthwhile thing.
Yeah, but
and I like because I want to talk the whole time.
But definitely, like I said, it's good to know that that's something that you would be down for sure. Because again, that was something I was thinking about, trying to implement and stuff. But man, this is I mean, I can sit and talk for hours. We can sit and just chit chat for hours, Lewis, about just the industry and just everything as a whole. And I do, definitely want to have you back on for sure. Maybe like for the 200. Like I said, I think we hit our 200th in November sometime. And I'm still trying to figure out like that. I wanted to do like a, just bring a bunch of guests on and just do like a group talk type of thing. So I'm kind of kicking around that idea of just having guests come on the show and just having a group panel kind of conversation for the 200th. It'd be great to have a bunch of guests come back on the show and just hash out stuff and talk.
Absolutely, man. Like, I love chopping up about art and creativity. Like, if you wanted me to talk about anything else, I'd probably be quiet as hell. But I think in terms of this, like, this is where my heart's at. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't tell, like, I'm not pulling punches or like trying to like draw any kind of line. I'm just talking about what I feel about it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do it as long as you know what I mean? Like, so all I'm saying is like November, if you want me down, man, just let me know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you do something big.
Definitely will, because like I said, I know I want to plan a big kind of 200 episode, celebration. Just trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to do this? Who do just jam on, because like I said, I'd like to have a big panel, but doing it this way, recording, just having a bunch it's kind of processor intensive on my machine. So I'm trying to figure out, well, maybe I could do it through Zoom. And that way that'll leave it up. But something like that. So I will be reaching out to everybody that I want to have just stop by the studio and just chop it up with us. So
I'm gonna throw one idea out, not to step on your goodbye, but maybe, just maybe, this 200 thing can be a like in-person session. Like, it's like a different format.
I would love to. And I've been wanting to do more like in-person type of shows, and that's the thing of getting around. Which I'm kind of practicing it now, because last year was like my first remote kind of broadcast. I connected with I don't know if he was a guest on my show, Barry Gaines. He's like an independent filmmaker. He does like sci-fi, horror independent films. But he started
right
a
on.
film festival out in Vegas. And so he was, we got to talking after the show and stuff, and I was telling him, yeah, I want to start doing more live remote, location things. And he said, well, let's try and have you come out to the festival and do a remote. And I have family out in Vegas, so it just worked out well for me. So I was like, okay, we can do this. So I went out last year, was the first year I did, kind of testing out, remote setup and everything like that. And so I liked it and figured out things I need to refine. So I really do want to do more live, remote, in-person kind of shows. So definitely that's something that would be, great to do, putting together and having, there's a lot of stuff. Like I said, I have a lot of things that I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to put together like a multi-day type of event function type of thing. Yeah. So, definitely some stuff on the plate that I want to do. And the fact that, like I said, relationships with friends like you definitely help to make it, easier to do, because you want to come on and really bring value to the people and share, your experience to help other creatives. So definitely a good idea for sure. So I'll keep that in mind, Louis.
All right, bro. I appreciate the talk, man. This was fun.
For sure,
really, truly. Thanks for inviting me, having me on for a second time. I'm glad I didn't get excommunicated after the first time, and I'm glad we were able to do it again.
never, Louis. Never, for sure.
Never say never, bro. Like, I got a loose mouth sometimes, not everyone likes it. But, I do not try and hurt.
You're my brother from another mother, so you're always, I come from a big family. We may not always get along and see eye to eye, but I love family. And I love when family comes and gets together, for sure.
For sure.
Everybody, again, make sure that you connect. Make sure that you connect with Louis. You can find him on all the platforms, for sure. X, TikTok, Instagram, Threads. Connect with him. He's in part of the Facebook community as well. And if you have questions about storyboarding, directing, he, as you can tell, he loves to give. And so, reach out, ask. You never know. But again, make sure that you connect with him. All this information will be on the show notes. So make sure you hop on over to the YouTube channel and get that for sure. Let me drop this. But yes, this has been, like I said, a fun episode, a marathon. Well, it's been a minute since I had a 3 hours episode, for sure.
Yeah, no,
I got a lot of shorts I'm going to be able to get from this. That's
Good.
for sure. But I can't thank you enough, Louis, again, for coming back and, one, being a part of the Color Emotion family, but then two, always being available to come back and just share with us. How I like it. We can just sit and talk and talk.
And maybe next time we do it, I'll actually just sit there and answer your questions one by one, so we can actually get through your list rather than me run off on tangents and other stuff that's
truthfully, I only have my questions as a backup because I like the free flowingness of how conversations go. I only have questions as just a fallback thing. I know great shows come from just this. You never know where a question will take you or down what road it will take you. Mr. Paul, yes, this was a great conversation. Salute. I appreciate you tuning in. I know Louis does as well. Eric Cato, invite the young and seniors. It would be interesting. Invite the young and seniors. It would be interesting. I guess
Mary must be talking about me and the young. Yeah, she's saying young guys like me and then senior guys like older than me, right?
Yeah. So I guess I'm in that senior older, type of thing.
Well, only because you let the gray go, bro. You gotta hit that back down to light brown and be like,
I get that. Hey, you roll with it. This is the gray. They come take it. Take it or leave it, baby. Take it or leave it.
I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm like, hey, whoever thought I never thought I'd make it to gray. And if I have gray, I should probably show it because I'm like, dude, I made it to gray.
Hey, I made it to gray. I made it to a lot of gray. And I'm thankful for it, especially like during this time. You know, I mean, it's crazy. We lost a lot of people this week.
Yeah.
You know, I was like,
Crazy.
man, what the heck is going on? That's what I was saying when Hulk Hogan and Chuck Mangione. I was like, man, oh man, what the heck? Just
Ozzy,
losing people left and right. So you got to
Malcolm Jamal
appreciate
Warner? I mean,
life
dang.
and live life. And that's why it's so important to connect. That's why connection is big. You know, we're only on here for a finite period of time. So we're here to connect with each other. You are young. This is for the great chat shows. Let's see. You are young. This is for the great chat show. Love it. Hand pick waving. Hand pink waving. I'm not sure. Love it. Hand pink waving. Oh, we lost Lewis, but we were closing out anyway. Like I said, I appreciate we didn't get a chance to share love for him being on. We're gonna do that. I want to thank Lewis for being on the show. Like I said, this was a great one. I have to message him back, but as always, you know, I thank you, the viewers, for giving me a little bit of, this was a lot of time, 3 hours. Like I said, normally, and that's a testament to just the casualness and just the free flowingness of how some episodes can go. And just Lewis is with just talking about something that's passionate to him. It can go on and on. So it was a great conversation for sure. Definitely make sure that you hop on over to, you know, the YouTube channel. Check it out. I know this was a long marathon of an episode, and some people may have dropped in and out, but definitely make sure you go over because Lewis gave a lot of great information. We had a fun conversation, and definitely so looking forward to having him back on. Like I said, I might bring him back on for the 200th episode later on this year because it's going to be a blast. Miss Mary, thank you for sticking it out. This show was so amazing. Don and Lewis, well done. Thank you. Appreciate that. I know Lewis does as well. Like I said, I'm super excited about bringing him back on for sure. And he's worked on some amazing stuff. Like I said, Sinners, you know, was an amazing project. I know a fun project for him to work on for sure. And it looks like he's got a good in with Ryan Coogler, Mr. Coogler there. Ryan, if you catch this, I would definitely love to have you as a guest on the show. So let's connect, Mr. Coogler, if you happen to watch this. With that, like I said, this has been an amazing episode. Thank you for sticking it out with me. I appreciate that so much. As always, I appreciate your faithfulness and you know, just you coming and tuning in every week. Man, like I said, third quarter has been gangbusters. Next week is going to be no exception. It's going to be another great episode for sure. Make sure you join us. We are welcoming Tisepo Moche, writer, director with Play Nice Pictures, coming back. We're going back to the motherland out of Africa. So definitely looking forward to sitting down and having a fun conversation with Tisepo for sure. So you do not want to miss that. It's going to be a fun one, and it's going to be another powerful episode. With that, I guess we can close this one out. Man, oh man, this has been a marathon one for sure. So have a great rest of the week. Have a great rest of the weekend. Have a more productive week. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.